ever forgets that Pyosik played 2 games of Rammus in spring. Yeah, and Lucid is basically like just playing Lee Sin Vi. He's just kind of playing his own champion pool still. So I really love the Vi first ban here from KT. I think that's absolutely necessary when you are playing into Lucid. Not only is it Lucid, but it's just a really strong pick. So take that away. They're also taking away his Maokai.
It was not one of his stronger picks, but one that he has a lot of experience on. And a pick that our top teams have been prioritizing quite a lot. Cuz also playing a ton of it. So I do think this is a ban that makes sense. And they're continuing to target Lucid in this draft. The Senna is gone already here. Now, the Rumble Skarner that we saw in the previous series, not entirely sure that's going to be going through, as I think for casting it would be a pretty big opportunity to pick up the Skarner if it left open. We'll have a lot of agency there, but we'll have a fairly low impact laning phase even if he falls behind. Tristana banned instead of the Rumble here, so we might have that handshake once again. It's up to D+.
It really is up to them. The Corki also, you know, kind of the next step in terms of AD mids. Kalista also a big consideration. And there's a lot of stuff to ban. You might want to leave some options open for yourself. I'm not sure what you would target here. The Nautilus is good. I think that's a good red side ban. Nautilus is still very strong. And that does mean the Kalista will go through, though. So that's deft on Kalista here for game 1.
Feels very strong, though, for KT because they banned the Nautilus after also banning Senna. Not that Nautilus is weak by any means with other AD carries. Very strong, in fact. But if they take the Skarner here, you have the Rumble answer. If they take the Rumble, you can feel comfortable with Skarner because you already have the Kalista, in theory, winning bottom lane. So this does feel very nice for KT right now on blue side. The Skarner does come through.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to Skarner Rumble. They will take away BDD's Talia, which is a strong move here, though.
That is very, very smart. It was banned all 3 games in the first series of the day, and I think Talia is just in a really good spot. I said before, it's Def Kalista, could also be Barrels Kalista. We have seen Keria play it a bunch, but not the standard at this point in time. Just throwing it out there as it is still potentially flexible. Sejuani
does not indicate a Rumble pick. I mean, it's certainly still possible, but we have seen some of our teams rely on the Sejuani, some junglers who are a little bit less comfortable with other meta picks. But a team like KT usually would be looking for something with the Permafrost, but they will lock it just the same here. So Rumble, the answer to this Skarner. Now, with the AP top lane, you do open up stuff like Yone mid, for example, even though the Tristana is banned. Corki still very viable, will likely get banned here. So I'm curious how KT is going to really shape up the second part of this draft, as it looks like grabbing an engage support here before all of those get taken off the board is going to be the game plan.
Oh boy.
Or not.
Imagine playing Kalista into not only Talia, but also Poppy. And it's not the only champ that has a dash and loves to be in melee range. They also have Sejuani. That is a really rough 2 champion combo, I think, for KT to deal with already.
Yeah, that is quite tricky. They're going to try to limit what aiming can play in this bottom lane that can deal with the Kalista. The Lucian is banned away now. The Varus might get a look here. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, banning strong picks for the Kalista. The Renata, the Blitzcrank has been quite popular these days as well, but blind at the moment. I'm not sure if they're going to ban that. If they lock the Blitzcrank in, they wouldn't necessarily know what they're laning up against just yet.
Yeah.
So a tough call to make. We'll see what they go with. It's the Rel instead, which is similar vein here in terms of engaged supports in that bottom lane. See if they want to take the Varus away here. The Ashe is already banned by D+. Zeri will be the option here. They have a really strong front line.
No Vi, no Nautilus already, so could have been a really strong R4 pick for aiming, who we know can play the Zeri to really high levels. So I think that's a good look as well, but that does leave the Varus who we're talking about available, and
yeah,
you know, already a lot of AP in your lineup.
My concern with the Zeri would have been that obviously it's tough to lane against a Kalista lane with the Zeri, but if you get through it, it's fantastic. They'll take the Corki here as well now, so some flexibility with this pick, allowing it to go into the bottom lane. The Talia already locked that. Yone, I mentioned, BDD has pulled this one out several times with the Sejuani lock in here. It's got a lot of great permafrost synergy. Can be very strong into the Talia, but again, another dash scenario here with the Talia rock. So very risky, and if you go in and the shot comes through, Poppy, etc., I feel like if you just put your hand over the D+ draft, you're like, well, this looks quite nice. Yeah, but if you remove your hand away, you're like, ooh, I'm not sure about that.
At this point, it's like, okay, well, we've already given over these two insanely good picks. Let's just commit even farther into this rabbit hole that we have already dug ourselves into. And Nico's going to be similar in terms of sending it for hard engage, but it is a fantastic combo with the Kalista down there on the bottom side. So
this feels very experimental for KT. Like once the Poppy came through, I think they were like, oh, I guess we do it anyways. Let's limit test this, and if we add more and more engage options, maybe one of them will get through, because Poppy can't block everything. And
you know, they could have potentially put the Corki mid. I don't think you wanted to do that, but you could have gone like Corki mid, Talia jungle, Poppy support, and then like pull out some weird 80 carries the final slot. But
Skarner support is also like not impossible, but I thought about it. But here's my main concern with the draft here of D+ is the Corki in the bottom lane. Everything else seems super robust, everything seems super strong, but you're laning into Nico Kalista with Corki bot lane, and yes, the Leona will help discourage dives and can be quite strong if she can land her Zenith Blade. There are ways with the armor shred from Corki to actually trade well in that lane. But you're going to get pushed in. You're going to have a tough time. The Sejuani can have a huge impact there. Pyosik just continues to play around bottom lane. And that's where things get a little bit shaky for me. Outside of that, though, I do feel like the draft here for D+ is overall, as long as they get through that bottom lane, a very strong draft that's well-rounded and is super strong specifically into all of the engage KT decided to go for. So
this does feel like one of those things where it's like, okay, if drafting was rock, paper, scissors, KT Rolster have the rock and T+ Kia have the paper. But they're going to try to cover this engage.
Yeah, the part of the rock, paper, scissors is like the rock is a little bit, weak on the bottom lane here. If the scissors are trying to cut through, maybe it can cut through. It's up to the Kalista.
We'll see how it goes here. Either way, game number 1 is ready to go. Let's hop onto the Rift.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Here we go, game number 1, and Deft is in a precarious situation, but the Corki's going to be the first one to run in there, so I mean, you had to kind of get vision first before you committed any flashes over the wall anyway, and so Deft just gets out scot-free.
Would have been disastrous had he been caught by a Zenith Blade or something like that, but we'll just be fine. We'll get that ward up into the pit as well. And that's going to be a ward dropped here in the river for KT, so we'll see they're lurking around. Kellen identifies this. It's just a little bit of a vision battle here. As, the setup in bottom lane, you have the heal for Barrel and give some additional movement speed, as, that's how this goes. We are still lurking.
Yeah. Just a bunch of lurkers on the Rift.
Hope they have detection.
Well, that's going to be Lucid. Hello. Pyosik's coming over here, but there's 3 members of DK in the face of Pyosik, who's like, well, I guess I'm going to blue buff.
Well, this will allow at least Deft and Barrel to hard push bottom and crash this wave in, so it's not without sacrifice here, as this is great for Lucid, but not so great for aiming. And yeah, I mean, ultimately it's not going to be horrible, but it is not great.
Here they come onto the red buff as well.
Yeah, like I don't...
Lucid pretty slow on this one. And he's level 2. There's 4 people on the side of KT that are coming in here. He is going to smite it, but he knows he is in a really rough spot and will accept his defeat. Although, Buckler picked up, is going towards the turrets. He is going to flash in between. He's actually trying to escape here. And you know what? I mean, oh no,
blast
cone! Not the blast cone, don't do it to me. Lucid's still on the run here. He does not have his W. And Pyosik is going all the way around, but Lucid has fooled him, and now he's just going to start his blue. Are you kidding me?
He's going to get away with it now. A very expensive move here. He loses flash, nearly loses his life, but the flash is perfect. Meanwhile,
going in here. Level 2 was aiming. But yeah, Lucid's just going to start this one up. And I mean, Pyosik might have just assumed he got into a brush somewhere and backed, but this is about to get really
This is crazy.
insane once again. And Pyosik gonna see his blue buff going down. He's like, you really stayed. A bunch of question mark pings and another engage in the bottom lane. Kellen might be in a little bit of trouble. Does get rended, but at the end of the day, it's still a good trade.
Pyosik is hunting, man. He wants this. He has flash advantage and he knows it.
He's down a level. I don't think level 2 Sejuani can really
so.
fight 1v1.
Now,
but
he's at less than half of his level 2. He might be in trouble as well.
Lucid has smite, and so Lucid holds on to his buff. Now,
Pyosik is game over, man.
Pyosik doesn't have a buff.
He doesn't have a buff. He's got squad, man. He's got no money. And this is disastrous. Meanwhile, aiming, able to get off with the roam down here.
Are we going to see a Corki gank in this game as well?
Yes. The answer is yes.
What universe are we living in right now? Oh, that we've seen is not good. He's just going to back. But Pyosik is on 2.5 camps.
Yeah, he lost his whole jungle, is now just going to go get sad Krugs. Consolation
Oh,
Krugs.
no, not consolation Krugs.
You know, consolation Krugs. So it's what happens. And
Consolugs.
oh no, they really did it to him. They really did it to him.
This is, of course, your very standard Poppy jungle pathing. Enemy Raptors into red buff into enemy blue buff.
The craziest thing about all of this, too, and the decision for Lucid to come back in there and take that blue buff as... Okay, I'm worried about talking about this. The Hex Flash can be used defensively. Is that he didn't have a sweep or anything, too. He just had the ultimate nerves, and he was like, I'm flash this. Pyosik has no idea. I'm just going to risk it. If there's a ward here, I die. There wasn't. Man, he reasonably could assume that there wouldn't be, considering how the game started and where they were pathing and where they started. So he could have reasonably sussed that out. But he took a huge risk. It pays off massively here. But there is a world where if Pyosik does something a little bit differently, hold up.
Pyosik, he is going to have some support, but he actually, first roam is coming over from Taliyah. Pyosik, I think, might just be dead, but the W does come out early from Lucid, and the Dragon is going to push him away, so yeah, not able to deny that. But Pyosik does have to flash to survive, and he's still down a level and like 5 camps at this point.
Yeah, Crab's going to go over to Lucid here as well. We'll clear up some vision. And we could be living in a world where Lucid's risk doesn't pay off, or he doesn't flash as perfectly and he dies, and it's the exact opposite scenario, and we're not seeing his phrases. BDD misses the ult.
Yeah, just flashing from Showmaker, and now we got Lucid looking to get over the wall. You can see Showmaker trying to push. And let's see how this one goes down. Jonas Strong keeping it.
See that pet?
Here we go. Here we go. Hex flash over the wall. BDD. The W comes down. Yeah, he's just going to flash away. And that is another summoner taken away from the members of KT by Lucid.
And Lucid, this early game, I mean, we didn't see as much dominance from Lucid in spring as the tales we told of CL were.
We told a lot of tales, by the way. We got Impale. He is just in so much trouble. Casting is going to flash, though, and he does get away. But, man, that's the worst scenario against a Skarner.
This is the most action with no kills I feel like I've ever seen.
But great. That's awesome.
Just going back to the Lucid point here, he has been so okay,
no Lucid point, Wolf. No Lucid point. Farrell's dead. Okay, down he goes. First blood goes to Kellen, and Deft has to flash away as well. Farrell not having his flash. Okay. All right, surely there's no more action.
I mean, I'm looking around the minimap.
Are they going to dive him? Yes. I mean, Kellen, he has Aftershock, but he is going to miss the Zenith Blade. So, okay. Not going to amount to too much.
Yeah, that was a little unfortunate, but Deft likely would have been okay. Has Cleanse, of course, but won't have to use it. But Lucid's early games, okay, when he has pressure and his pathing, some of the intelligence decisions he's made in challengers, especially on, AP junglers and fast farming junglers have been so good. I feel like we didn't get to see that much of it when he was on Sejuani and Maokai every game in spring season. But you give him even the Poppy in this case, and his team plays around that deny of Pyosik early, flash out, etc. He handled that situation so brilliantly.
Yeah.
And I'm really loving to see him actually finally get to showcase some of his early game potential here against a strong team like KT.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, this is what we were talking about before the game started, as now he's going to knock the Sejuani into the wall. W comes down, and you know what? Pyoshik is just dead. He doesn't have his flash, and Lucian still has his. He gets away. BDD not able to punish in this 3v3. Barrel's still here. He's going to keep Kellen around, as Deft is trying to help out, but at the end of the day, it's just a kill here, and now the wall's going to come down. Barrel has to flash away himself, as Lucid's like, come on, guys, let's just do the dragon instead.
This is so crazy, the aggression, and it's pulled a lot of the attention away for KT of that bottom lane. They haven't been able to really put the pressure onto Aiming or Kellen at all. They've kind of been forcing them out of lane non-stop. Sentinel here is going to get focused down. Nothing they could do to stop this dragon. BDD doesn't have ult, doesn't have flash, doesn't have any agency, and that's just going to go the way of D+ here. First dragon of the game. Going back to this moment here. Thinks he is okay because he checked the middle bush, but guess what? There's no vision in that third bush there on the top side of the bottom lane.
Yeah.
And that's where a lurking Leona is.
Kellen has been doing a lot of lurking Leona stuff. He just barely misses the Zenith blade here, but Lucid does hit the corner of the wall. Nice flash away from BDD. And then they just don't have the firepower to really trade back.
Yeah. Good shove from Showmaker, who is significantly behind in CS at the moment, but has been making a lot of proactive plays at the same time in this lane. Hasn't been able to punish BDD. BDD has handled all of this pressure really well, all things considered. Finally, Deft is trying to do a thing in the bottom lane.
Deft doesn't have flash here, and Showmaker's already here. The root comes down onto Kellen, but I think he's still in a lot of trouble. Flash comes in, and Deft is just going to hold on to his cleanse. He knows he's 100% dead. That's another kill over to D+ Kia. That one going over to the Corki.
I mean, D+ are just running circles around KT this game. And Showmaker sacrificing more minions here. Doesn't have his teleport. It's nearly up. I mean, it's almost perfect. It could have been calculated as more action.
Lucid's here, and Impale is on point, and you're not getting out of this one. Casting, the knockup comes in, and with no flash available, the timing on the gank is perfect. And Skarner's so good at setting those up. Now, BDD and Pyoshik trying to trade it back.
He's got flash, though.
Yeah, and this is Skarner, and the ult is just going to sail wide. Pyoshik trying to get on in there onto Lucid, but it is stunned to come down actually underneath the turret, but Lucid barely going to go down with just the flail to get the job done.
Yeah, you can see Kellen headed to mid lane. Perhaps thought maybe you'd have to go topside to cover if they wanted to go for a second dive. But with all their tools used and no more buttons left, Kingen should be fine to clear the rest of this wave. So at least KT gets something back, but this bottom lane has been such a disaster, and it's the pressure point KT so desperately wanted to rely on, but D+ have just warped this game so hard to pull them out of the bottom lane, starting from the red buff. And I mean, this is actually, they just took Casting and tied him to the back of a train, dragged him across the tracks, man.
It's a lot of interactive gameplay there.
A pull into a pull.
Into a push?
Yeah.
Into a knockup?
Now,
it's like a cheat code or something.
Clean here from BDD at near max range to set this one up with Pyoshik. Pyoshik will get the final hit there, so sadly for BDD, the kill doesn't go to him, but still a trade back of some kind, but it is not enough to say this game is anywhere near even. Still 20 CS up, Lucid in this game, significantly ahead on farm. And over here, you know, Deft and Barrel, no control of the jungle, cannot apply any pressure to Aiming. And they've been trying to, but they were punished last time, and they keep getting pulled out of this lane.
Yeah.
And Showmaker sacrificed a lot for this, but it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. Here we go again. How many times? Okay, well, the Impale is going to miss this time. Kingen a little bit unfortunate on that one. The angle a little bit strange, I suppose. But yeah, at the same time, they were thinking about going down towards the bottom side of the map. They do not elect to do that. But yeah, really the only reason KT is close to them in gold is because BDD is so far ahead in farm.
Yeah, he has a bounty.
Yeah.
Which is kind of silly because that actually could backfire as well into KT if he ends up getting picked at any point. He just got the 1 assist, now the bounty's fallen off at least. But oof, nothing's going right here for KT. Yeah. The next stage of this for KT though is going to be the early team fight where they have the Yone, right? They have the Nico ultimate. Rumble ult still very powerful in the early game in terms of setting up objectives. So this next Dragon, for example, could be where they turn things around in a major way if D+ opt in and they end up winning that. Some first strike gold is going over to Casting here. Despite being killed earlier and forced to lose his flash, for example, he is putting the pressure on with Rumble quite well. Barrel coming up here now, too, as they look to swamp lanes. Casting has the teleports and go back to bottom if they get this pick.
And you can see King is taking some decent amount of damage. Deft just going to show up, and everybody is here. King just going to immediately dash away.
Should just
get out of dodge.
The TP to bottom now here for Casting. Although he wants to back first, so Aiming is just going to get free gold, and they will deny some farm as well. Deft is likewise getting plates on the top side here.
Yeah, I think that KT should be able to get first turret in the top side, just based on the health bars we were looking at. But this does mean that Lucid picks up a second Drake. Nice individual Drakes for the side of DK. His first turret will go the way of Deft, and might be followed up by Corki in the bottom side, although there is a big response. Nice seismic shove here from Showmaker, just to say no. And yeah, they get over here in time to actually stop this turret from going down.
I feel like this is a bit poor, though, by KT in terms of what they could have done with the teleport and the advantage top side. Like, they still lose a majority of this turret and lose the Dragon. Deft was going to get that turret no matter what. Barrel?
King just impaled the clone. The Barrel is in a lot of trouble, and he's just going to run away.
Look,
that's fine.
It happens, okay? They win the exchange. Like, Lucid gets red buff, it's fine. Now, BDD and Deft are with the Kalista power up here with the Yone. I mean, the two of them could do this pretty quickly, and Pyoshiga's rotating over with the Smite, so they will get away with this in turn, but we're a bit disappointed that the call for Casting was to buy Leandries and then just walk back bottom, and they never contested the Drake Prio whatsoever and just let the turret plates go, and now Aiming is in position to just take the whole thing out, so we'll still get the gold anyways. Not first brick, as you mentioned, but still, I feel like if Casting had just teleported bottom and ulted the wave, then could have actually just been fine, and they would have saved a lot of grief, but he wanted to get the Leandries so badly, but hasn't utilized it at all. Being very critical here, but I think KT had an opportunity to turn that into more than what they got. And they have, with that play though, equalized the gold, taken a slight lead, in fact.
BDD back with a bounty, this time larger than before. 200 extra gold if you take down BDD right now, who has 1 assist. You know, the way it's calculated. The teams are relatively close. He is very far ahead in farm, so that's the way it goes. The top lane also going pretty well for Casting in terms of farm, especially because Kinga was just pushed off of a turret and didn't get to farm much himself. This Rift Herald that was secured by KT going to be thrown in mid. This isn't at a Drake timing or anything like that, but they would love to take down this tier 1.
Yeah, it would be massive. A lot of damage done to Aiming there as well. Good poke coming through.
Equalizer going to hit him. Oh, that knockback nearly catches Barrel. Probably would have meant his demise, but he does survive.
Have to kind of build Kalista like this with lethal tempo being out of the game now, and the poke is coming through. You can see that D+ really had to respect it there. Casting hasn't had to use that teleport that he saved when they left. You know, they did give that Dragon up, so that's one thing, that extra edge he does have. King can match him, of course, but that's one thing to consider, as a lot of gold has been kind of snatched up on the map here by KT, and have brought this back in, and it's an Ocean Soul. So the two Dragons, while individually valuable, don't really threaten KT in a way where it's going to force them to take a fight they don't necessarily want to, or if it's bad game state, bad prio, you know, they feel like they have to opt in. So things have looked a lot better for KT in these last 5 minutes.
Barrel just out in the middle of nowhere trying to get some deep wards in. That's a free kill. Goes over to Aiming.
Caster Curse.
Not sure what the idea that was there, but yeah, kind of unfortunate. Didn't have any prio in mid, so it's kind of the biggest issue. Gets collapsed on really fast by the Poppy, who is just in general, very fast.
Kingen is doing the Raptors, by the way, and we're not going to see a teleport from Casting, it looks like, to...
Could also just go in here on a Deft. I mean, Deft is all alone here. He does have Flash and Cleanse, but yeah, they're just going to leave that one as the teleport does come in from BDD. And now a try to Showmaker, who is in a lot of trouble, but the rest of KT trying to close the distance and get in. They finally take out Showmaker, and now Kellen kind of left on his lonesome. Lucid the same, just going to ult the Rumble away. But this is a great fight for KT. They turn it around with a TP and pick up 2 kills.
Pretty optimistic against Def there to try to look for that play as Kingin. If you have the follow-up instantly, it's much easier, but Def had Cleanse. He also had Flash. He has a turret still standing there. Very difficult to pull that one off as tanky as Skarner is there. They just set up a scrappy fight that with a Yone Rumble composition and casting obviously had the teleport we mentioned just before to get in there. Was a very high-risk play, and I feel like it didn't need to be forced like the way that D+ trying to do it, is Kingin just couldn't resist the opportunity. This is moments before Barrel just trying to set up vision, but there's control. It wasn't it. He died. Kingin here, Deft has Cleanse and Flash, and is able to, after he gets stunned into the wall here, cleanse and back away, and even with the rocks, he can get away. And now things get really dicey, because the Rumble's already teleported in. BDD kind of misses everything, but he does enough damage here. Equalizer gets layered through. This ends up being a huge win here for the side of KT. No way for Kellen to realistically get out of this one. Great re-engage here from BDD. At least Lucid can knock the support away. I'm sorry, knock the Rumble away.
Yeah, and that blue buff did actually go the way of KT, so that's going to feel pretty good after all, especially right before this Drake. We'll have that extra. Level 7 are the supports. Kellen looking for an angle as the Banana Brush control held by 3 wards, 2 of them control wards here by the side of DK. KT desperate to try to get some vision in here, but not able to do so just yet. Although Kellen is going to be rooted up here. He doesn't have the help of his team right now. He has to flash away. Very awkward spot for him to be standing, and he will be punished for it.
Showmaker did a lot of damage during that exchange, though, and aiming is also full health here, so KT needed to play very respectful. Barrel still could look for an engage, and that's why D+ are spreading themselves out here. They don't absolutely need a hard force for this. They already have a 2 Drake lead. Got to be so wary of the Nico engage. Kellen.
Oh, Barrel, he has to flash away from that one, and it might work out for him, though. But we got a lot of different angles coming in onto this fight. You see Kingin on the left as the knockaway of the jungler, and this fight comes in. Lucid once again gonna get the job done, and Deft has to flash away from the seismic shove, and the impale in the brush. They're not ready for that one, and now Pyoshik is all by his lonesome. They're so low on the backside of this fight. DK not gonna over chase, but man, they got a lot of value out of that fight.
Really nice trap set there by Kingin. If they try to push on him, he has that defensive capability or can turn it around. They don't get a kill, but they will be able to, with that exchange, grab this turret on top of the steal there with Lucid's ultimate. And KT, I think in a lot of ways, had so many different opportunities to engage. Number one, to wait for the perfect one, and kind of came up with nothing. They got Kellen's flash, but the barrel chases too far. And this is an issue. Look at how split the calls here are for this one on KT. Casting is trying to watch the flank angle of the Skarner. Barrel's going in here and has to flash. Deft is trying to bail him out while they're also trying to hold aggro of the Drake. They're on like 4 different pages here as a unit. And then ultimately with this coming through from Lucid, the Keeper's Verdict means he guarantees this dragon. And then Kingin, they're like, maybe we can push him. Like, you know, he's all alone. Aiming can't rotate over here. Oops, we're impaled.
Now, speaking of which, oops, we are knocked into the wall as trying to dive here. BDD's gonna go down. Casting surely gets this kill, right? Okay, he is gonna pick up the kill, but now TP coming in.
Showmaker has Weaver's Wall.
Yeah, Showmaker definitely gonna try to punish this one. The equalizer is pretty good. Seismic Shove is gonna get some damage in, but this is a Rumble making things pretty spicy as now we got more action as Pyoshik was going in there to try to save him. I don't even know, guys. Pyoshik's just gonna go down. It's a double kill for aiming. And now 4 versus 2. They could look for the Baron. We have seen some very aggressive Baron calls in recent times, but they're not going to go for it. Probably the right call.
Yeah, I mean, we got to make a nickname for this series now. Is it the KT Kia Derby? Like, this is actually just too much for me, Valdez. Like, this game is so scrappy. It's so crazy. It's non-stop action. It's not calculated. It's all limit testing. It's constantly... you know, just basically stats checking, hands checking, non-stop as you have this trade coming through. The Showmaker teleports over. Good play by Kingin to at least trade the kill back, but it is going to be Casting who ultimately gets caught here. Holds his own, but Showmaker has Seraphs, and he doesn't take that much damage from the equalizer. The scrap shield is not enough, and Pyoshik was coming over to try to save the play. A bit optimistic, I think you could say.
A little bit.
Especially considering he is on the Sejuani. So he just ends up being an additional kill that's picked up, and
yeah.
I mean, KT,
for his sake, Pyoshik's only going to be 1 kill out of like 46 that we're going to have in this game. So, you know, he's like, oh, what's one more? It's fine.
2 minutes until Ocean Soul here for the side of D+. I mean, with the Kalista poke that comes through, and also after, post equalizer drops, like that could be quite valuable for D+'s relatively tanky composition. Just to be respected by KT. Kellen is very tanky, has Aftershock and Eclipse.
Eclipse, Aftershock, the Celestial opposition. I mean, it's basically like you got to chew through 4 different things if you ever want to try to kill Leona. It is quite strong nowadays. And, well, Casting is now pushing once again. He doesn't have BDD to dive any turrets, so perhaps for just a moment, we'll have, maybe a couple of seconds to breathe.
I would like to have one real 5v5 team fight. Valdez gets to have his play-by-play. We get to see maybe a big Yone ult, maybe some equalizer layering instead of just constant scrappy skirmishes. Or a very disjointed KT when it's supposed to be a 5v5 team fight. It's like a 1v1, a 2v2, and another 2v2 team fight. That's what I'm hoping for, Valdez, on this Ocean Soul fight that D+ is looking to set up for right now. They got Kingen pushing outside. Showmaker does not have teleport, and he's on the top side of the map here, but he does have Weaver's Wall and can rotate relatively quickly here. KT, on the other hand, just trying to regroup. Pioshik walking back to shop. Buys a control ward. This is a really important fight for KT. And they just do not have a lot of control on either top or bottom side, unfortunately for them at the moment.
Saw that Lucid was thinking about pushing that wave, but actually leaves it for Showmaker. And Showmaker will pick that up, maybe trying to hit the spike of the Crypt Bloom or the Void Staff. Probably Crypt Bloom, I would assume.
I think
on the Taliyah.
Yeah, I think it will be Crypt Bloom in this case. But Showmaker just drops waves topside because he knows Prio is more important right now. BDD TP's back in. This is the fight that likely decides this game.
Yeah, and BDD is their most fed member at this point. He's already taken some damage as Pioshik is just going to send it into Lucid, but Lucid is able to charge away from the follow-up as Barrel, only able to get the knock-up on the Poppy, immediately is going to be pulled back. Meanwhile, trying to turn now onto Kellen, who we said before is pretty much unkillable. A nice chunk of damage still done to him. As Kingen still looking for his angle. So many low health bars here between the two teams.
All right, Lucid trying to come over here and start up this Dragon. A bit optimistic, though, as BDD coming back in, looking for an angle to line up.
Oh, he just dashed down on the rocks.
Yikes.
I mean, we talked about this, right? Like in a straight-up 5v5, it is difficult to make this work into this fight, and then knockback into the knock on the wall, and you just don't get to play the game, Pioshik. And with the jungler gone, that will be Ocean Soul to the side of DK. Casting, very nice dodge here, but the follow-up is coming in. Now they're trying to turn and fight this one 4v4. They know the Poppy is gone, but the rock to the face, and down will go the Yone. And King is looking for more, gets a couple of flashes with his Impale, but the fight is not done. They're still going in. They're still looking for more blood. DK can't get enough.
So solo right now, Lucid is taking the Dragon. It does go over. They're looking for a reset here, and then go straight to the Baron. Aiming just going to take out the Scuttle Crab here. They have Ocean Soul, so Aiming, even though he lost a little bit of his health bar, will now get a lot of that back significantly as he takes out the Crab. See the rotation over of King with the teleport back to mid. And there is no contest here whatsoever for KT in what has been a very scrappy, but honestly, mostly sloppy game from KT Rolster. I mean, it all starts off in fights like this where you're walking into so much engage. If BD loses a ton of health, there's just not much you can do. Then you follow up, and then this moment here where you see the equalizer drop, it's like, okay, everybody loses a lot of their health on the side of D+. They already have a little bit of Ocean healing, but that's not really the difference maker here. It's just the follow-up, walking forward with very little vision. And BDD, like, that's not it. Unfortunately, he's had a great laning phase, but outside of the lane, avert your eyes. And this one, and Pioshik just completely shoved in. And everyone's kind of walking in one by one, and the only engage they have left is BDD's ult, but he's half health, so he can't use it. And D+, they've got a full tank of gas in terms of going in, and they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this might just turn out to be one of those games where the draft doesn't really matter when it really should have, just because it's been so scrappy. There hasn't been a real team fight, it feels like, but you can just see some of the stuff we were talking about. Like, BDD does not have an entry. Pioshik just kind of has to walk at them and hope that he he sets up some kind of freeze and some kind of play. Otherwise, they don't really have much going for them.
I mean, D+'s comp has so much engaged. KT's engage is ultimate reliant. You know, you need Barrel's ult, you need BDD's ult, Depth's ult potentially, right? Or Pyoshik's ultimate, whereas D+'s have so much consistent engage, so you trade ults and D+ is like, I'm still ready. You know, come at me. And now they're going to grab this inhibitor. BDD getting some value topside, but it is not equivalent.
Yeah, he's going to have to back now, as they are threatening here with the Baron buff. They still have a minute 30, and now a wall to come down to try to just open up these Nexus turrets. It might be able to get one, but it looks like they don't want to take the chance. Knocko comes in from BDD, but that is Skarner.
Tough to end with the equalizer still available here for casting. Just going to be able to clear this out if they tried to stay and you know, push the issue. There's other ways those ults are back up. No, he's not going to do it to you, Valdez.
I mean, he might. I don't know. Based on what I've seen in this game.
He won't. He's all right. Don't worry. Valdez, calm down.
Okay.
It's almost over, Valdez, the first one. Like,
the first game.
There's no more crazy.
Of 3.
Look, just 2 more, buddy. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, generally these games also go to like 50 minutes long, so.
I don't know, the game state right now is telling me this one's not, but yeah, we'll probably get one.
It probably shouldn't. I'll just say that. Yeah, they're being pushed out of here, and with, you know, I mentioned before, the flash hit with the impale. Where did he go? And now a massive counter engage comes in, but do they have the damage? It's a question. Down will go Showmaker, but that might just be it for the damage that goes into them. Kingen's so tanky, Kellen's so tanky, aiming, still full health, still pushing into the base. And it was a fantastic counter engage, but not quite enough money to get the job done, especially without death.
Yeah, and now with no equalizer, I think D+ could just escort this next wave with the super minions here and look to start chipping away. 25 seconds on BDD, but he won't have his ultimate. Same to be said of Barrel when he respawns. I think this should be the beginning of the end.
Well, they're going to dive a Sejuani under Nexus turret, so it's looking just likely as down will go Pyoshik. And down will go casting, and down should go these Nexus turrets. It was a very insanely scrappy game. Very much back and forth as Barrel desperate, Deft also desperate, but it will not happen. The Nexus goes down, and DK take game 1.
Now the 11-kill Corki might be where some of those media votes are going, because it was a scrappy game, it's hard to know. But for me, it's either mid or jungle all the way. The early game from Lucid, incredible. The risks he took to get them a massive lead and to pull the attention away from that Kalista bottom lane was fantastic. On the other hand, Showmaker, great Weaver's Walls, great map sense, great knockups. The seismic shoves were fantastic from him. And the two of them really shaped this game. There were some moments for Kingen, sure, and yes, aiming did the boom boom when it was necessary. Kellen, he had some good moments, he had some worrying moments, but man,
he had the right energy for the series, you know? He was like, all right, I know what kind of game this is. I'm just going to send it into the back line.
Lucid's early game prowess finally really on display in a crazy and wild way like what we've seen in Challengers is always a happy thing to see. I think KT's super upset with how this one went. They doubled down on a tough draft into Poppy. If you're going to hard force the, if you're going to hard force the Yone, and BDD's one of my favorite players, but you got to hit your abilities. He wasn't really doing that. His laning was fine, but I think this is a, like, just wipe the slate clean and just move to game 2. Forget about this draft, because this was a rough one.
They're playing on pretty high difficulty, let's say, the side of KT, and that's not really a spot where they should be going for that high of difficulty of draft. Either way, guys, we are done here with game number 1. Only more on the way. We're going to take a break and have the space to break down that first one. We will be right back.
라인 빨리 뱉어.
나 몸이 안 움직이는데?
반응해야지 어두야.
야나 CC
나 칼리 25초야. 칼리 25초.
CC
아 그냥
4.5초
천천히 하면 끝날 것
너
같아.
지금 씩씩대고 있어.
럼블 풀
버리고.
있지. 럼블 풀
풀
있어.
있어. 풀 있어. 풀 있어.
벽공 막게 플래시.
아,
연계해줄게.
천천히 해도 끝난다.
타워부터 타워부터.
세즈부터 볼게 나 그냥.
세즈부터 보자.
세즈부터. 세즈부터.
럼블 볼게.
럼블까지.
자, 한번 뺄게.
네 칼리 나왔다. 끝날 듯?
괜찮아. 칼리볼 써라.
니코 노플이야.
야,
니코 노플.
야, 로네 나와. 그냥 끝내라.
나이스.
나이스요.
A huge glow up, and he ended up being a very, very strong player on Rumble specifically as well, the pick that they played in game 1. So maybe that's going to at least bring some extra, I guess, pre-existing synergy they have and some morale to the team, but it doesn't feel great. Just, I mean, no matter which way you look at it, if it's casting in, the synergy isn't there. If it's perfect in, he's sick, but let's see how it goes. Valdez is KT, a rough start to the season.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. I mean, Quantum Freak's definitely coming out much stronger than any of us expected. Now they got to face DK, who seem to be their biggest rival at this point. Tristana, same ban so far. And will it be the final ban of Nautilus once again into not Kalista first pick?
I think that is exactly where we're headed.
That's the direction I want to go. All right. Can they do it?
And it
Can
is
they, that,
no.
All right.
Well,
Um,
Skarner Poppy.
Skarner Talia.
Well, you can do this too. Now, maybe KT picked the Poppy away, but
I mean, the Talia herself is already
I know.
so strong.
I know, but maybe they just don't pick Yone this time, and that helps. But
Yeah, I mean, you could like.
you need to go Azir. How about Azir?
Well, Sejuani is the same, and so is
I mean,
the Rumble.
you don't have to lock it in now, but I'm talking about what happens in the second phase where
Yeah.
the crowd is going wild with the Lucid lock-in. They banned the Vi. They banned the Maokai. The guy's already picked up a POG on this Poppy, and he gets it a second time into the Kalista, into the Sejuani,
It's
and we're running it back.
Exactly mirrored so far, and I guarantee you the Korean cast was saying the same stuff we were talking about, and the DK fans are going wild. The KT fans can't believe it. Same bans.
Lucid can't believe it. He's
Yeah.
doing it again.
The DK members are kind of just laughing because they know that it went so well.
And I want to say that, I mean, in the thought process here for KT is the draft they prepared, right? This style of play, they knew Skarner was going to get locked in. They want to have the Rumble answer. They put Perfect in. And KT is probably also thinking there is no way that the same exact disaster happens early on in the game again, right? And I don't think it will. But that doesn't solve the other problems that this draft had. Lucid got a massive lead because of that level 1. As I don't know if I've seen BDD look this stressed out ever since Nongshim, man. When he was on Nongshim, he looked like this.
This is the Yone spot. This is where they picked Yone.
He cannot
And
do
there
it.
is more thought going into it. Nico first. Nico was picked, but it was the 5th pick.
Look,
So maybe they're still discussing and they know they're going to pick Nico. So Nico gets locked.
do not do the Yone. Do not do it.
Yeah, I mean, already
I'd rather see Azir
they're
here.
in a hole.
I'd rather see Azir here. It's BDD.
Or like, Wei?
Wei is also fine.
Maybe that's like too much magic damage? I mean, Jace? Jace. Okay, well, it's not Yone.
But
That's
it's
what I'll
also
say.
not. It doesn't inspire confidence into the front line of Poppy Skarner, with lethality being the primary build
At
already
least
on
it
the
has
Kalista.
range.
I mean, and Leona as well, which you knew was coming.
Yeah.
So now you're playing lethality Jace, lethality Kalista into Skarner, Poppy, Leona. This is some of the most questionable drafting I've seen, Valdez, and they already fell into this trap once.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of when CV Max first started coaching in the LCK a long time ago, and he was with Griffin, and they would get absolutely wrecked in a game, and he would basically run it back the exact same draft in game number 2, and he'd say, just play it better. Now,
Well,
KT never struck me as that kind of team, nor that kind of drafting, but they've essentially done that here.
Well, 7 years later, CV Max still does that.
Yeah, he does. You know, that's kind of his thing. Again, it's not KT's thing.
KT really trying to force the square peg into the round hole with this one, but if there is a different early game, if we could see the Kalista get advantage bottom lane, the same possible win conditions we talked about in game 1 do exist. And if Showmaker can't have the same impact early where he's dropping waves but getting massive advantages elsewhere, KT could still pull this off. But I feel like the Jace is not the swap that inspires you when you're talking about the front line that exists here in this D+ roster.
Yeah, and it took them a long time to think of it too. You know, they picked the Nico, they were still discussing it, and like 2 seconds later they bring out the Jace. Does it work for game 2? Let's find out. Let's hop onto the Rifts.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Here we go, game number 2. And as you mentioned, Wolf, I mean, as the KT coaching staff, maybe you still feel okay with what you had, and you just say, don't let Lucid take 3 buffs. You know, maybe Pyoshik can be a little bit more proactive in the early game. Maybe they can stop and invade. And maybe if things go normally the way they had planned before the series, perhaps we get a better game state.
I mean, they could have just banned the Taliyah instead of the Tristana and warped the entire game into a completely different draft, right? But
yeah.
They opted into this. You think about other, you know, picks, like 80 picks in the mid lane. There weren't that many left. The Corki's taken away, right? I mean, you're not playing Kiana into this, so you don't want that. You know, what do you really have in terms of
it's
other
got to be the
options?
Akshan.
Oh, no. Scion mid.
Yeah.
So,
hey, man, Cassante was ignored. You could have just picked that.
I think the idea here is we have the AP top laner. We want an AP, or rather AD mid.
Yeah.
And Jace, the one thing, okay, so we talked about Jace struggling to tank, so Jace can actually have a little bit of better time in this lane. The range issue that Chronicler pointed out earlier in terms of what Taliyah can struggle with, Jace can get some advantages here, can get some prio, can keep Showmaker down so he can't make those high impact plays. So in terms of what he offers you in the lane, because we've been mostly talking about team fights and damage profiles and stuff like that, is quite strong. So there is that, and we'll see what he can make happen with this pick here in this early game, because BDD has been a fantastic Jace player in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, you know, being able to poke them down, being able to take better states of the game without getting necessarily into the grasp of Skarner, Poppy, Taliyah, this does round out that comp in that direction a bit better. So let's see how it does go. Kingen has looked great on the Skarner. I remember, you know, in the first series, DK versus Hum Life Esports, I'm like, Skarner's in the meta, the new Skarner. This feels like the perfect champ for Kingen because it's really solid laning, has a ton of CC, gameplay, you know, playmaking kind of style. That feels like right up Kingen's alley, and so far he has looked very good on it. I feel like it's hard to not look good on Skarner, though,
Yeah.
if I do say so myself.
I feel like if it's simple in lane, -1. If it's simple in lane and it can flank, that's the Kingen way, man. He's like, I like the easy lane and I like the flanking. That's what I do. I set up team fights.
But also, it kind of has that Ornn feel, right? Where he would like do the flash ult stuff, and you can kind of do the same thing on Skarner where you're kind of just running at them as well.
So KT say you can't pull off the same trick twice, right? Lucid doesn't get the insane level 1, didn't start Raptors, doesn't have any of that. And look at what this lane was supposed to look like that we discussed in game 1 that didn't happen because Deft and Barrel had to put out fires through the early game, and then were lit on fire by some really good plays from Showmaker. But this is one of the edges that we were discussing in game 1 that's coming true here. BDD trying to get some advantages here in lane as well. Like, these are the good parts of this draft, and KT can snowball this game to a point if they win some early skirmishes, get some early Drake control, for example. It's Infernal to start, to where, you know, some of that scaling and some of the later parts of the game and the dash denial doesn't matter as much, as there's already a plate going over to Barrel and Deft. Good CS under turret here so far from aiming, but it's not going to deny the fact that Deft and Barrel are getting some additional income here.
Yeah, Corki pretty good at getting those under turrets, especially the range, because you can Gatling gun the ranged minions and get them low enough to just one auto them. So having a decent time there. Lucid just power farming, as is Pyoshik. Started on his blue side, did Pyoshik, and had a ward on his red buff, just to make sure that that he had all his bases covered and he could get at least one buff. He does have 2 buffs in this game, and he's going to spot Lucid taking the top Scuttle Crab.
He's already taken his bottom, and had he been just a moment earlier, might have been able to contest that top Scuttle, but is unable to do so.
Something's going
So
on
Portal
here.
Combat?
So Portal Combat. Yeah, it doesn't last too long as he's just going to get flashed on him. Perfect. He has aggro on the turret. The flash comes in from Lucid, and that's just first blood. Perfect goes down. And you know what? Sometimes you just get skarnered.
Yep.
What else can you say?
I don't care if it's casting. I don't care if it's perfect. I will flash that Rumble and pull him into the turret.
So Aiming's going to have to cleanse here. That's kind of awkward. Didn't know that barrel was in the brush, but still a good start here for DK. Once again, just in a different kind of style.
And you want to be putting as much pressure on as the Rumble as possible into the Skarner, but in this case, just being in range of the flash drag back, it's, you know, it's not where you want to be. You have to respect that or you will get outplayed, and Perfect did. We saw the same thing happen to Casting just moments before. So, you know, it is going to be not the end of the world, obviously, here, but a great play nonetheless from D+. The kill goes over to Lucid.
Done a strong zooming in, I think, because no flash for Perfect, and Kingen has Impale, and Kingen is certainly threatening to put on more aggro.
이러면 그냥 끝인 듯? 야, 볼게.
He's like, I'm looking for it. Flash comes out, and then the charge here, the buckler damage is enough. Lucid takes the kill. And Kingen is just so vocal there in that moment. And one of the things we talked about and noticed in spring is Kingen has really become a little bit more of a shot-calling voice. Obviously, if you're the top laner and you're looking for a gank, you have to be, because who else is going to be doing it? But glad to see the confidence from Kingen in a moment like that.
Yeah, just identifying the situation, taking advantage of Perfect. As here comes BDD, the equalizer comes down from the top side. Knockback here on a BDD who is getting pretty low. Lucid, though, is getting burnt quite a bit by Perfect. And if Perfect wasn't there, maybe they could have turned onto BDD, but it wasn't meant to be.
No, not going to happen. Trying to use that pressure to maybe deny some farm from Lucid, but Lucid is going to be able to get 6 off of these Raptors. Pioshik is kind of lurking nearby still, but just too tanky to try to make anything happen. Raptors get taken. He does hit 6. And another thing to keep in mind is that they were not scrimming with Casting. We mentioned this at the beginning of the series, so he just kind of came in emergency this week because Perfect has been ill. And, you know, this is a Rumble draft, right? And it's a give Skarner, take Rumble situation. Perfect's arguably best champion was Rumble once he started to really hit his rhythm on it. So maybe they subbed him in because they're like, well, he's the one we practiced this strategy with, actually, so maybe things will look different. But so far, sadly for KT fans, it hasn't.
The issue with this is that now that you've died once and you still don't have your flash, Kingen is holding the lane in the perfect spot.
Yep.
Like you can't get more perfect, actually, with this lane position. It's right in front of the turret. You're always threatening and all in onto Perfect.
Look at how hard it is for Perfect to get those last hits and how many are denied.
Uh-oh.
The slow.
Go again. Ooh. Max range. And Kingen does give him the thumbs up.
Good spacing. Nicely played.
Well done, kid. And Lucid was here.
Yeah, he was. Pioshik could head up there now that Kingen's ult is down, but I don't think he will. There's no jungle up there on the top side. Meanwhile, on the bottom, we haven't really been looking at it that much, but a small CS advantage has started to accrue for Deft, but he was only able to get the 1 plate, so I think ideally would have liked to get a little bit more out of this lane, but Aiming and Kellen have played it well, as the observers are just like, oh, I want to see more action. Look at his tail's down. He doesn't have flash. Come on, it's not going to happen again. Come on, Jonas Strong.
You never know.
Check back in about like.
He voted for Skarner in the first game.
It's true. It's true.
He wants to see more.
Well, no doubt we will, but just not exactly right now. Give it like another minute or so, and those abilities come back online.
Yeah. Well, not nearly as much scrappiness as the first game, I guess. Things didn't quite start off with the same gusto as the first one.
Another thing to point out about this Jace situation versus Skarner is that we are seeing Skarner have to itemize magic resistance because he's landing against a Rumble, so it is going to be a while before he ends up...
Well, he is going to scan it, but the knockup comes in into the follow-up from the Taliyah, and BDD has no chance. The only way to get out of that one is to flash immediately, but he does not, and immediately he goes down.
They're still going to be able to hold this Dragon here, KT, despite BDD getting picked here. A lot of cooldowns used, namely the Keeper's Verdict, and there's no way to come over and deny, so at least they get this, but great consolation prize here for D+. Fairly late take on this first Dragon. Stats going over to the side of D+ here. Next will be Mountain, so we're still not sure, or rather to KT. We still don't know what the Soul is going to be just yet. His depth.
Yeah, that's a nice chunk. In this 1v1, the Corki definitely doesn't want to get quite near the Kalista, unless he gets the jump on her, even then. So Deft gonna get the jump on him, push him back. He has to go back to base even. So kind of awkward spot there for aiming.
So we didn't see the Zeri. That's super slippery, very difficult to lock down. But Corki similarly has Valkyrie, does have Cleanse. As Deft is like, you want to tango with me, I'll tango with you.
And we're back to the top lane. Jonas Strong wants to prove to everybody that Skarner was the correct vote. And yeah, Perfect's gonna spot that. We also do have Pyosik up here on the top side of the map.
Might be onto something with that, Valdez, actually. There's nothing like being the one guy who votes for the other thing.
Yeah.
You actually get so upset, and then you're like, you spend the rest of the day talking about it. Like, happens in game one of a 6-game
I can't believe everybody voted for everyone else.
And like, Ox is in the Brendo bus, like, still explaining why it was Pleta. Like, you're like, I don't even remember the game anymore, Ox, you know. That happens to everybody, right? Another plate will go down bottom side. This is BD. Uses his acceleration gate, speeds himself up, unfortunately for him, into Lucid. And the only way to get out of this one, as you said, is to instantly flash. Very tough to do so in this scenario, and he might still ultimately go down. As
so we did have a little play up there, actually.
Yeah.
But essentially just a trade of flashes.
No Impale to connect.
Push coming in here from aiming. I think he just wants to back away. Lucid helping out with that.
Locking down this Corki later on, I was just kind of getting into earlier, is going to be quite challenging. So, you know, aiming's inherent safety. Frontline he is going to be able to do a lot of damage later on. Still needs to be careful with how forward he plays, because if he ends up getting caught by Nico, you know, it might just be doomed anyways, even with the flash and cleanse. So Beryl has a lot of agency there. And luckily for us, I think this game is going to be a lot more interesting in terms of how team fights are going to play out. There's going to be some fun neutral games that BDD and Deft can kind of play with the poke that they have with these lethality builds. So, you know, this is looking like a real game of League of Legends where Pyosik is actually, you know, ahead on farm, and the top side's been competitive, but Rumble's still going to be very relevant as we get to later parts. So this is a cute little cologne to somewhat mask the lane swap. Obviously, they know about it now.
Yeah, Kangan's out of there. Didn't take him very long. And we do have Pyosik nearby, though, so potential for some shenanigans up on the top side. Impale is available. Kellen is also making his way up to the top side, as is Showmaker and Lucid.
I mean, Showmaker has Weaver's Wall. I think KT should think twice about heavily committing here.
And they do. Just back out of this one for now. Lucid's still in a kind of an awkward spot, but he has Kellen nearby, and he is Poppy. So it's a lot of posturing, a lot of looking angrily at each other.
It's
a lot of action.
For D+ is so anti-dive, you know, with the Skarner ult, with the knockback from Showmaker, the seismic shove, and you've got a Leona and a Poppy. So KT is kind of roaming around looking for an option, and no option looks good. No option seems ideal. It's so hard to actually pile onto somebody and look for a pick. So respect the proactivity, but it is so difficult to pull it off. As once again, now heading topside, Lucid is somewhat nearby on Red Buff.
He's pathing up there as well. I mean, he's going to be on Krugs by the time this hits. And he's already on his way. Just picks up the red buff, and the timing could not be better for Lucid. He's going to get here. We have Showmaker in position, but they're not going to overcommit to trying to punish this. And DK, just wait.
You can see how tense this game is, and how these teams are posturing, and how neither of them wants to play passively, but neither of them wants to heavy commit. And what could be a huge swing of gold. Ooh, nice hit from BDD.
Yeah. You can see BDD is extremely suspicious, as he should be. of potential gank, and Deft is just in no man's land, but there's nobody to follow up on Lucid. The double knockup comes in, and now Lucid in a lot of trouble. He's going to burn down Beryl, just going to get fates called, and Kellen has to go forward, but to his demise, BDD as well, getting some damage, and they're going to take out Showmaker, and it's 3 kills to the side of KT and a Rift Herald.
You can see why they're being so timid, how volatile these two compositions are when they collide, but it's Beryl's engage that ends up being the saving grace here for KT, and Perfect trusts him. He teleports straight into the middle of the fight, which is normally a death sentence for a squishy Rumble. Doesn't have Zhonya's, doesn't have Arm Guard. BS goes right into the thick of things, knowing that if Beryl hits the CC, his equalizer value is going to be massive, and that's going to be a dead Poppy. As soon as they see Lucid go in, he uses everything here. Beryl's ult comes over, Perfect layers the equalizer onto it, and Kellen, he either walks back into an equalizer or tries to send the blade over, but there is just no follow-up. Aiming has to flash the wall here, but Showmaker is left out to dry. A huge win for KT, a huge win for Perfect as well. They end up picking up the Herald, and 2 kills go over to this Rumble. He's going to be able to now try to follow up on some more CC here once that equalizer is ready. Not ready, though, for this Dragon.
Yeah. As here we go again, trying to look for a play on a Beryl as he will go into clone mode, and he is burning down, but Kellen is going to be the support that goes down, as eventually, so will Beryl. So I suppose worth for DK at the end of the day. Deft and Pyoshik taking a big chunk of damage themselves, but with this Rift Herald pressure, and aiming also low, actually, taking a look at him, they might still feel okay.
Yeah, and some of those ults coming back online, Perfect's ult, Pyoshik's ult. Beryl has his, but he isn't here as he did burn down to Kellen's Ignite just moments before, but it's really difficult for D+ to fight this unless Lucid gets a big Keeper's Verdict, which is also now coming online as the action is high in this series, non-stop start to finish. And KT, without that engage tool of Beryl, not confident enough to start this Dragon up just yet, but again, they can contest it. They just need to slowly rotate Perfect in. Beryl's fishing.
King is just looking at the 4 of them. Doesn't really feel threatened as the Skarner, but he might be the one threatening. Gets the flash out of Deft. We'll be happy to trade flashes with the 80 carry. But now Impale is down, as is the Skarner flash. KT trying to set up here on this one. King now in an awkward spot, but he is baiting out a lot of CC, but they have oodles and boodles of it as King is going to go down. And now the rest of the fight does begin. The equalizer is massive onto Showmaker and Kellen. They burned for so long. He's now in the bush. Lucid just going to try to get on the run, and he is going to be forced to Keeper's Verdict, but even the Blast Cone not going to save you here, buddy. Down he will go, and the Mountain Drake rather will go to KT.
BDD surely did send him to the skies on that one with the Blast Cone there. We'll take him out. And finally, the Dragon goes the way of KT. It's a 2-stack here into Chemtech. I hear a large audible groan from one KT fan, so that one's announced. But still, 2 Dragon lead, 2 significant Drakes individually. As this fight looks so split here for D+, and yet they don't want to give any additional prio over to KT, but it means that King just ends up getting caught and solo ulted. They don't need to use the equalizer to guarantee that pick, so they can use it to further zone. D+ just completely out of luck on this one. Lucid trying to stick around and maybe try to split them up with the Keeper's Verdict, but stays too long and is ultimately taken out by BDD here. As on a knife's edge was that fight, but Beryl's back. He had his ult back up. KT's critical ultimates this time really coming up big into D+ when they're so split.
Yeah. So KT looking much cleaner this time around. You can see that poke damage is coming in. Aiming has not had a fun time against Kalista and Jace. That is one of the champions that you did not list in terms of champs that would love to play into a lot of lethality. The Skarner, loving it. The Leona, great. Sure, Poppy, of course. But Corki, it's kind of rough to get into auto attack range when you're dealing with Qs from the Kalista, accelerated shock blast from Jace. And starting off the fights with less than half health is not going to feel good. So something that DK will have to deal with.
And even though Perfect got punished by King a few times, his equalizers have been good. His team fights have been honestly very clean. His follow-up on Beryl's engages have been nice. Beryl has looked a lot better in this game. And once again has his ultimate back up, has flash up, so with his dash cannon, he has a lot of agency for the upcoming fight. Still a ways away from any objective to fight over, so this game is going to slow down again for a minute, but interesting look here as we see a huge wraparound from Kellen. Man, they check vision, so Thought perhaps he was going to come over here to look for a dive, but it's pretty tough with Skarner to actually kill a Rumble, even if you have that additional Leona CC.
Yeah, just kind of looking at him funny. And Baron was not yet up, so I suppose that was one timing in the game where you could potentially look for a big dive on the bottom side if you were going to bring multiple members, but I feel like if they did it, they immediately just lose mid-tier 1 as well, potentially, so.
It set up some good vision, Kellen did with that rotation over, sweep the vision out of the jungle for KT. Not necessarily relevant without the Dragon up for 2.5 minutes, but could end up being relevant and could be a flank ward for Kingen to teleport to later. As Baron has now spawned, everyone's rotating over towards it. Perfect has TP, and it's just a fight for vision here. A ton of control ward money tossed into the nether here for D+. They did not have enough prio to hold on to that one. KT definitely feeling really good about the zombie wards and the additional gold they're going to pick up from that.
Yeah, that's the classic that we always talk about, especially when we're very close to finishing our first item at 20 minutes into the game.
Hey.
It's just one of the things we got to mention, and that is going to be that mid-tier 1 falling eventually regardless, so Def's going to take that one down. I feel like both of these teams could have some pretty fast Barons, especially KT, from ahead here. So that is going to have to be something that DK do keep in mind. The game is still close, but you know, the potential for fast objectives, even, you know, a Chemtech Soul is not that bad given their comp. I think, you know, KT in still pretty good control of this game.
Blast cones, by the way, on Chemtech Rift, pretty fantastic for KT's position. Uh-oh, indeed.
Yeah, the TP's going to come in here, and the Impale, it just keeps you locked down for way too long. Although that Equalizer is burning down Showmaker, it's still going to be a kill over to the side of D+ Kia. And again, it's so early on that KT aren't going to pull the trigger here on the Baron by any means.
Yeah, Seraph's value both times. The same set play here for D+ is going to be there for Showmaker. I don't know if he necessarily needed it, but it makes it look really hopeless there for the Rumble trying to burn him down.
That was double TP for 1 kill.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously Perfect still keeps his. We'll be up in 20. Equalizer's on a very low cooldown, so yes, the money is good, but at the end of the day, it might feel like a trade-up for KT in a lot of ways. I do agree that KT's Baron speed is something that D+ need to respect, and D+ do have great ways to interrupt Barons, so as long as they're in the vicinity of the Baron, I feel like with King's flash up and his ability to go through walls, he can absolutely warp one of those team fights. KT will excel as long as there's not a Skarner between Deft and BDD's damage onto aiming. You know, there's a lot of ways to fight for neutral, and D+ are very rapidly losing control of this map, so trying to get that kill on the Rumble feels great money-wise, but it lost them a lot of everything else, because now you can see Perfect is ready to get top turret.
Oh, look at that seismic shove, jeez. This is going to be quite a lot. I think it hit a clone, though, and the Sejuani, so at the end of the day, classier than perhaps it was.
Perfect gets his top turret, right? He's got TP, so, you know, D+ on a bit of a timer here in terms of the value. And Kingen just trying to clear mid-wave.
And that's not going to be a hit here on the Deft, who also does have Cleanse, so not even going to get the Cleanse out of him. And Perfect, as you mentioned, just getting a free turret in the top lane, and now he's going to TP in proactively. He's going to be here on time for the immediate Equalizer.
Showmaker's so low, and Weaver's Wall tough to use here.
And he's looking for these picks, but in general, the positioning of KT's tanks is quite good. They're always in the front. They're always absorbing the pressure and the damage.
Kingen does have Impale back, but look at the spread here for KT, and the poke war definitely going their way right now. The Leandri's even on these harpoons coming through, and Jace just constantly hitting those backlines. Now Kingen kind of blocking for him, but there is a limit to how much he can block. And if Barrel finds the ult, that's the end of the fight.
Yeah, you see Barrel always threatening from the top side, aiming even kind of in an awkward spot. He's on a ward as well, so they can always threaten him. They know he's not really in the fight right now, but gonna engage here onto the Skarner, and they have the damage once again as he is burning, but he gets through the walls and survives on 50 HP. It's not a kill, but it is a Chemtech Drake to KT.
Yeah, and Perfect didn't even use his ult. There's no way they could even approach this pit. It's got choke points covered by Barrel as well. And now it's just going to be BDD heading down to the bottom lane. Now this is Chemtech Soul. So it doesn't matter as much as it could if this was Hextech Soul Point, for example, if it was Infernal Soul Point, even Mountain Soul Point, right? But or even Cloud.
Is that all of them?
Yeah.
Did you get all of them?
I think I
Okay.
got all of them, yeah.
Good job.
Or even Ocean.
Good list.
I think that's the one I missed, but yeah. It is significant still, and you know, D+ not going to get anything cross for this. Lucid is going to be okay here. Pyosik doesn't have his ult back up. I'm so terrified of what Barrel can do with Blast Cone angles on this Nico. We've seen it so many times from multiple players. We've seen it from Execute, we've seen it from Barrel himself. We've seen it from Showmaker, we've seen it from Canyon.
All right, well, they definitely saw them. They're definitely aware of this. Pyosik trying to pressure here, gonna push them away. Level 7 is Kellen, level 9 for Barrel.
Kingen will have TP up very shortly here. BDD has it already. TP coming in for Showmaker as they start this one up.
Yeah, Kingen doesn't have his TP just yet. He is just running on up.
Very slow to get here, though, and Jace can just join at any time.
Yeah, you see that Pyosik does take some damage. It's not very early, but it's still, we're not even past the 30-minute mark right now. It's 25 minutes in, and with the entirety of DK there, as you mentioned before, Wolf, I think that's a bit risky to try to go for that Baron take. Kingen, he's still here by himself in mid, and again he's going to be isolated as the Impale does come in, and he is very difficult to kill. But eventually he will go down, as Pyosik does take a bunch of damage in the trade, but they have been very consistently just identifying that they can kill Kingen.
Yeah, I feel like Hirai and the KT players are going to be like, look, I'll listen to English cast. We're going to have a talk, because you guys are like, you can't kill this Skarner. Like, solo killing him and focusing him down. You know, we do burn through his health bar. It's
Turret, though, in trade.
Yeah. And here's like, nice, the caster said the draft wasn't going to run back.
I mean, to be honest, the Jace has looked much better than the Yone.
Definitely much better than Yone. We weren't sold on it, but what it did in lane and how it's helped them fight for neutral when they have such a great engage setup is really quite nice. And I think if you are a Skarner in this position, knowing that Showmaker has Weaver's Wall, you're extremely tanky, you still feel pretty safe to be out there at this point in time, and you want to maintain some modicum of prio in the mid lane with this Baron up, but he isn't safe, and the chain CC is there, and all that burn damage does eventually add up. As Kellen is just going to shadow aiming up here.
Hey, he hit level 8.
There we go.
He finally did it, 27 minutes into the game, level 8. Nice. Congratulations. He still doesn't have his first item. Okay.
Well, they're just channeling back and canceling them, hiding where they are on the map. Like, aiming, they know you don't have package.
Yeah.
And so the idea was we need to back to defend this mid push, but like we also want to try to stay top if they go to Baron because they didn't have any vision really, and then they just didn't get anything done top, nor did they defend the mid turret. So
yeah. Kellen did he did not buy any control wards on his back. Saving up.
He's getting there. Come on, Valley.
He's gonna get it maybe by 30 minutes. Maybe. I'm not convinced. And
promise you he gets it. Okay, there it is.
Hey, he did it. Nice. Warmogs.
Warmog's not going to be too... I mean, it's pretty good into Jace poke, obviously, but he does end up getting caught by anything. It's certainly not going to help him too much. And that's kind of how this game is going for KT. They don't use the poke to kill people. They use the poke to force people to come to them, and then that's when barrel presses are, and then we see the equalizer layered on top, and the fights are won like that. So it's the neutral power of Jace that's so annoying, but they're not aiming for Leona. They're aiming for the squishies in the back line as they stack up that damage. I feel like I've become a Warmog's hater overnight, but while like against Jace poke, it feels like it is the most essential Warmog situation. I feel like it's not actually in this case.
It would be really good on aiming. How about aiming builds it?
Well,
then when he gets hit by the poke, he can regen. And
but what about when he tries to hurt the other ones? When he tries to click on them, he doesn't do as much.
Leave that to Leon. Here we go again. I mean, how many times is this going to happen? He is going to flash away, and the Weaver's Wall does come down. Def barely going to miss. Dodge on that one, but the equalizer once again is pretty good. The Impale on a Pyosik as the tanks are just being bullied in this game.
And the equalizer got a ton of value there, not onto the carries, but onto the front line as Clean.
Root on the Showmaker. And we're getting scrappy again. The team's haven't fought enough. They say, okay, go for the soul, we dare you.
And again, D+'s comp is much less reliant, on their ultimates. Lucid is the key one that they have. He still has it, the most important one for this fight. KT without those ultimates in that skirmish, a little bit tougher. How many of these shock blasts can BDD hit?
Look at Kellen. I don't think they have any idea.
That's about to find out.
Yeah, they know. They even have a ward over the wall as well. They might have spotted him.
Showmaker gonna back. He has teleport here, but he's so low. He just needs to TP back in if they're gonna contest this. Is aiming.
This is such a weird spot. I mean, now it's noticing and BDD coming over here
And
together.
perfect. Soloing this.
Chemtech Soul. He did it.
Plus scrap shields.
Yeah.
I mean, the extra damage is going to be significant in these, wonky fights.
Yeah. I mean, especially from ahead, just having that extra damage resist as well just makes it even that much harder. It's just a bunch of extra stats, potentially. As long as that person doesn't get isolated and killed immediately, definitely going to help out in some of these team fights.
I think D+ really kind of didn't know what to do after KT backed off the Baron a little bit there, and they pushed top, but there was nothing to get. They let the Dragon go, and they just gave KT the most valuable resource of all, which is time to get their ultimates back online. Now you got Equalizer back. It doesn't take that long. Equalizer's on a super low cooldown. Beryl has his ult back up again. And now KT start this Baron, and they have fantastic turn, and you just got done resetting. So this is an ideal scenario for KT to actually start this Baron up. They've got the damage. Perfect has TP. He can show up at any time. I just want to clear out some vision and make it a little bit tougher for D+ to make a good decision. They still have a control ward in that pit. That's probably the ideal ward to clear. Maybe not the ones on the red buff, but the one in the Baron pit itself could be a better option. But KT could start this Baron up and say, all right, we have some of the best turn League of Legends has to offer. But instead, yeah.
Instead, we are backing.
Didn't even clear the control ward in the pit. Just going to let D+ know.
You know, the series between these two teams, it always does give you a very nice challengers feel in terms of just how chaotic it is. So, Elder Flip. You got it in 4 minutes. Neither team seems to want to go for the Baron just yet. You can get some Elder Flip action in here.
Well, I'm starting to wonder if either team is going to be interested in the Elder either.
I think they like that one.
Okay, they cleared the ward in the pit. Now they're going to clear this ward here.
You definitely have to, you know, clean it up quite a bit before you do go into the Baron.
Sure.
Two junglers just kind of looking at each other, and that one will go the way of Pyoshik.
Ooh, they're just trying to push on aiming, knowing there's nothing to block. I actually kind of like this position here for KT.
Yeah, definitely should be good. I mean,
now,
the question is, how deep do you want to go, right? As King and he's just pressuring bot lane turret.
I mean, it's tough here for the teleport for King, and teleport flanks not really available here at all. He's actually walking up.
Half health, Lucid's already here. Are they going to continue on this one? Lucid does have the ult to come through, but the Sedge ult catches him, and Jace is going to secure it as Beryl nearly goes down, but it does not matter. They have a perfect angle, and down will go two of the members already, the bottom laners of DK. The Baron goes the way of KT. Down will go Lucid and Showmaker, and KT, they might have just won the game right there.
I mean, what was Kingen doing that whole time? He just took a joyride between two turrets. He was just driving through. He didn't come to the fight at all. They needed him there. They needed a front line. They needed some defensive options. And even though he couldn't have gone for a flank teleport, he could have just teleported onto his team and helped peel for them there, but he just didn't show up. And now he's the last man standing, looking for an impale here. I think it's too little too late.
He's not even going to get the kill on a Pyoshik. I mean, Kellen, he's still getting in there. He's still fighting, but with 5 members alive, they will be able to take down the Nexus, and we will have our game 3. As is always the way, we go the full set, the full distance between these two teams whenever they face off.
Pretty self-explanatory last fight there. KT had a ton of control. They were very patient around getting that Baron vision, and finally their first win of the season does come through. For the most part, running back the same draft with the Jace, a huge difference maker in neutral. So good into the Corki. When the Corki is trying to farm mid, they just assign BDD mid there and just constantly shove him out, constantly poke him out. And they are able to win it in the end. Barrel with some really clutch engages this game too. Very much the difference maker along with Perfect, who emergency subs in, is sick, and still gets it done after a rough laning phase. It took me a minute to pick POG there, Valdez. I'll leave it a secret for now, but
yeah,
I think it was a team effort more than anything else, and for the first time, KT finally link up as a 5-man unit.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot cleaner than game one. It definitely looked a lot more playable, especially the stuff you were talking about in the early game, just able to get some nice leads, and then you've got control of the situation, the vision, your poke is landing, and you don't have a Yone dashing onto Leah Rocks. Things definitely looked a lot better for KT in that second game.
I'm so puzzled by what the decision-making of Kingan in that last moment. I mean, I don't know if it would have necessarily mattered if he TP'd even onto his team, but the man was literally driving between two turrets while his team was getting wiped. He had TP, there were wards on his team he could have TP'd to. And I think D+ really feeling the pressure in this one. And yet again, for now the 4th time in 2024, full series. 3-gamer.
Yeah. We got the glasses. Very cool. And just saying that KT's going to get the win. Crossing out the 0 as always. Making it a 2-1. But we are not done with this series, guys. We got one more game. We are going to take a break and then have the space to break down game number 2. We'll be right back.
야 먹어봐 야 궁 떠줘 호피 넣어
걸어 그냥 걸어.
이겨 쭉 가자 하나 위야 하나 위 하나 우리 위
잡았어? 잡았고.
So we are in the 4th back-to-back, the 4-peat of the
Oh no, not the 4-peat.
here for D+ and KT. Rolster going to his 3rd game all year long, including playoffs that went to game 5. D+ was able to get the better of them there, which only Jonas Strong and G-Sun could have predicted back then. I was a KT predictor going into this series, or going into this week. Going into today, if I could have swapped my prediction, I would have.
Same.
You never know what's going to happen in this 3rd and final game. But in terms of bans, looking identical.
They are looking pretty identical. We don't have a first ban Vi from KT.
But that's going to be the 2nd ban.
That's probably going to be the 2nd ban, yes. I think that's absolutely what you need to ban against Lucid. If you're not banning Vi against Lucid, I think they're just going to first pick it, even with Skarner available. But let's see. Let's see how this one does pan out. The Callista also denied, so nobody's playing that one in this game. Although we did see it in both games 1 and 2.
Yeah, and even though aiming handled it pretty well, the Callista and the Corki gave them a lot of power bottom side there and allowed them to play the Nico support, which was the engage that led to all of those really cool combos. It was a really cool draft from KT. We were skeptical as that looks like a potential Cassante angle here for D+. And you see the Twisted Fate Man. Not necessarily, but often it is what it means.
Yeah. TF, I think, in general, a pretty good ban against KT Rolster. BDD is a fantastic TF player. I hope it doesn't mean that Showmaker's playing Akali. That's doesn't really feel like the meta for like TF mid and Akali and stuff like that, but
If the mid,
we'll see.
if the mid doesn't have CC, it doesn't belong in my LCK.
What about Corki?
I mean, Corki has other options. Like
Yeah.
I'll
So-
give Corki the nod.
Why did they leave Vi open?
They have an answer. It's going to be Pyoshik Sejuani.
That's not a good pick in Divine.
It's going to be Pyoshik Sejuani coming in.
So
I mean, they also banned Tristana, so I don't know if Pyoshik is planning on playing an AP jungler here.
so you're taking Talia, right? You're not giving them Talia Vi.
They're giving them Talia Vi.
Okay. You know, I've been pretty judgmental on KT's drafts so far, but this one, this might push me over the edge.
Let's see what the plan is. I don't want to judge early.
I think Skarner and Varus are great picks individually.
Because
I'll say that.
And when you have Vi and Talia, which will obviously be locked in here, they're just using this time to think about what their third pick is going to be here, which will probably just be Rumble. Although it's a lot of magic damage, so there's other options to consider. The Cassante is still strong here into the Skarner. I don't want to judge this until I see what BDD is playing. And if I'm not
How
convinced
about
by that,
Renekton?
could be Renekton.
Renekton, another choice. But
I think it's going to be Cassante.
Cassante does feel a little bit more OP, but it's Zeri.
Nautilus is up also. This almost feels like they're like, aha, we steal BDD's pick away this way because now they have to lock the Nautilus. I said Nautilus, not Nidalee.
Yeah, I did hear you correctly.
Yeah, no, I'm not telling you. I'm telling BDD. That's the wrong hover. There you go.
Yeah, Nautilus very strong in general,
He
but
types
also
a
very
V.
strong into Zeri when you're picking it when your opponents can pick after your Zeri.
Yeah, he typed a knee and not a nah, and he had to backspace and then type the nah and then click the Nautilus. This does mean BDD loses his top tier counter picks that he would have potentially liked to have. Now, this also indicates to me that BDD has a special pick prepared for this Talia. They left it open, right? And now they're going to just not grab it. So, like, at this point, you ban the Rumble, you ban the Cassante as KT Rolster, but as D+, you're like, well, they left it open, so they clearly have something prepared, but we don't know what it is, so it's very difficult to actually ban out BDD here. It could be the Azir, but
There's still a lot of things you can play in the mid lane, right? You could still go like AP jungle and throw a Corki in mid, right? That's still an option here.
yeah.
They did take away the Nidalee, but still a lot of other great AP jungle options to potentially go for. So a lot to think about here, I'd say, if you're DK. I think when both mid and jungle are available, it's really difficult to ban away BDD and Pyoshik, so they're just going to take Poppy away.
Okay. Doesn't feel like a very... I don't know if... I mean, it's not a bad ban by any means, but it doesn't feel like that's what KT were leaning towards here. As Veigar. So I told you, you can't ban it because you don't know what it's going to be, and BDD had something special prepared. He thought he was going to have the answer to this. Very strong in Divide, as we've seen in the past. Also, Skarner, pretty good in Divide as well. So I do like this angle here for KT Roll. So yeah, you gave Lucid his best pick, but doesn't necessarily mean free win if you have the answers, right? And BDD has a pretty decent answer here, as I did not expect to see this hover.
Well, King and Gragas into Perfect's Skarner could be pretty interesting. I mean, it's a lot of sustain, I suppose, but the Rakan is going to be the choice. They really want extreme, hard engage. We're all going in at the same time. Every champ here pretty much does that. The Talia is more of a follow-up, along with the other three.
It could have been a Lulu and just opt in for survivability, and Enchantress support is going to have a better time into Veigar cages than the Rakan will, but if you can manage that cooldown, you see it drop, you go in, oh boy, World's MVP. I said it earlier, I was like, he likes to play the champ, but does the lane really well and does the flanking.
Kindred!
Okay.
Alrighty.
Well, that's a Pyoshik special. We got the King and special here. It feels like an exhibition match. Lucid has his best champ, BDD, playing the Veigar he's famed for. And it's all coming full circle. Depth's Varus here. The knowledge to lock down this Zeri. There's a lot of CC on both sides. There's a lot of zoning for KT. When you combine the Event Horizon and the Lamb's Respite, it's a pretty cool combo where everyone's kind of stuck in the cage. You can't kill anybody. And then you have the ability to pull people into the cage with Impale, as well as the charge from Skarner's E. So if you look at all the different things that KT's comp can do, it's very creative. And I feel like they didn't want to show this draft in this series, but they felt like they had to. They left those picks open. They let Lucid play the Vi, tried to set this trap. And I'll give them an A for effort in terms of the creativity.
Oh, hello.
Hello. There they are. Is that a Looper? Not 100% sure. But anyway, on the side of D+, it's Looper and Pawn. On the side of D+, I feel like their draft is perfect for them. I mean, aiming, Zeri, right? Showmaker, Talia, Lucid on the Vi, King and Aatrox. Tons of mid-game power in this draft, and KT's execution is a lot tougher.
It definitely is, but I really like this Kindred pick. I think it's great into what they have. Extreme hard engage. That ult's going to be great, but let's see how it goes. Game 3 starts now.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
All right.
30초
And
남았습니다.
how about a little invade to get Game 3 started here? It's just going to give some stacks over to BDD's Veigar so that he has a little bit of an easier time in the lane. Very generous of you, DK.
Too bad he didn't go first strike. We've gotten some money out of it.
Yeah. So the Kindred, it's great. It has a good matchup into the Vi. It has a great matchup into this comp in general.
He has a pentakill on it, Valdez.
He has a pentakill. It's Pyoshik. It just feels perfect. It's where you'll oftentimes, you won't see the 5th pick on red side save for the jungle, but this is like one of those times where it feels really good. So
Yeah, I mean,
really cool to see, and I think, you know, only a player like Pyoshik could potentially get it done.
the Kia KT Derby, man. Forget Telecom Wars. This is my new hot series of the season.
Yeah, they're just so evenly matched.
They're evenly matched. The drafts are you know, head-scratching in some ways, but extremely creative in others. And, like, oh, this has just been super entertaining as Kellen's going to get hooked, but should be okay here. Nice trade, obviously, out of this. But I look at the setups here for KT, and I think, wow, there's a lot of really awesome potential options here for how this game goes so well for them in mid-game skirmishes. And even early game skirmishes can be incredibly strong for them. And then you have the late game, I press R, champion dies for BDD.
Oh,
great hook.
Oh, the hooks have been good from Barrel. He's just had a fantastic time on this champ in general. Pyoshik is over here. He's going to spot a Vi, or where he should be. Maybe we'll take the wolves away. Did go from his red immediately into Lucid's jungle. So once again, just trying to get started on that good jungle 1v1.
Trying to ask him how he likes it. Some of that jungle gets taken away. And up on the top side, the Aatrox is going to struggle with some of these early levels, but can start to be a huge menace, especially if Perfect just goes back to buy that standard tier to start stacking that up. King will be able to actually get relevant stats and continue to pressure him in that top side of the map. As long as he can hit those sweet spots, which seemed to be a little bit of an issue yesterday. Well, we'll see what he could do with that pick. At the moment, though, struggling into those early Skarner levels, as we often see. Did go Grasp. Perfect did this time around, so a bit of a change up there.
Ooh. That was a really nice hook from Barrel, just because it was on target. Kellen had to dodge it, but also it wasn't close enough to the wall where he awkwardly hooks the wall and then takes half his health and damage because he missed the guy, but he hits the wall. It's like right there in that sweet spot where either you're going to hit the champion or you're going to hit nothing.
Yeah, that was really well done by Barrel.
It's just funny to like praise him for missing a hook, but it's just one of those very small things.
Just so well positioned.
Yeah, Lucid and Showmaker is getting in there, as they do want to take the scuttle, as now trying to get on top of Death, but that knockup's not going to come through as Barrel just blasted away. Meanwhile, BDD and Pyoshik, they want to fight this one. But at the end of the day, it's essentially just a 4v4. The Event Horizon comes down, and Pyoshik's going to run straight for the marked Scuttle Crab, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, especially with a lack of control they have now here with no Event Horizon. Deft.
He wants it. He's feeling the energy of this series. Meanwhile, Event Horizon is going to miss, but that does zone them away. Perfect's also down here. Look at how well the team is playing around this one. Might come down to a smite, though, as it will go the way of Pyoshi. He does pick up the first mark very early on. His Dep's going to have to flash here. Kind of an awkward spot for him as he is burning down. He's going to trade back a little bit, but not the greatest lane state for him.
Yeah, even with Halo Blades here, you're just not going to be able to offer the same amount of damage as Zeri in this type of trade pattern. Kellen is in position. Ignite goes down. He has to flash. Barrier also popped here, so Def down both sums. Barrel zoned out now as well as he is, and that's going to be aiming, picking up plate here early. Knowing, of course, that Pyoshik went topside, there's no one to bail out this lane. BDD will teleport over to try to catch some of the farm. We'll, of course, be able to grab 2 stacks there. And we'll get some additional stacking going. Grabbed a tier as well. Did not go for the Gatherings late game AP either, is actually going Scorch here. So I think that really says the type of game here where KT are trying to fight a lot in mid game.
BDD?
Yeah.
He didn't go Gathering Storm?
No, he didn't. I saw it in the runes earlier, he did not. Unless I missaw it. Pretty sure he did not.
Yeah, BDD is a known Scorcher.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the idea is that you just want to have a better lane state against the Taliyah, but, you know, Veigar loves his AP.
He certainly does.
That's just another way to scale up very nicely, but he's a known Scorcher, so.
He really is.
And he does take it pretty much on every champion.
I think that one of the things about Veigar that I've always felt, and you guys don't know this, I'm basically a Veigar main, it's one of the picks I play all the time, is that his early game and his mid game are so incredibly strong even before he gets all that AP because of Event Horizon, right? You can really warp team fights your way, and even his execute on his ult before he has a ton of AP can be quite significant. So, you know, if you want to try to continue to put that pressure on in lane and then roam in a lot of matchups, you can really get that done in the Scorch's value. In this matchup, you know, not really going to be the case, especially when you teleport bottom and give up control, but just wanted to point out.
He's just picking up extra farm, Wolf. He's just getting down there. He's like, oh, that's a nice, juicy wave for me. I'm Veigar. I'm going to stack up some stacks. That's what you do with stacks. You stack
them. Yeah.
KT's going to make a big play here for the Drake. 4 members on the Drake, but 4 members of DK also trying to get in here, but they want to turn onto Kellen. And where are you going to go? You're trapped in the cage, and immediately he goes down, just executed, like you said. Nice foreshadowing there from Wolf, as immediately Kellen just doesn't exist anymore. And they don't get the Drake, but they get First Blood.
First Blood, pretty significant here. Gold over to BDD, plus the 5 stacks he'll pick up on top of the stacks he's gotten in mid and in bot there, off of the takedown. So his money stacking up here as well as, ooh. It's going to be okay for both parties involved in this scenario, but I don't think anyone really expected that to come through except Barrel.
We can't fathom it, you know. He just understands it himself, and all of us just kind of have to guess.
Yeah, we're all just living in Barrel's world.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever he's on the stage, you know, you just have to accept it. You're in his territory. You know, they say win in Rome in the LCK. We say win in D+ versus KT.
Yeah.
Look the other way. So that play there, though, from Barrel and the lack of vision ends up really costing D+. Kellen can't do anything because he's hooked. The Event Horizon is there. He's put in the center of it, so he can't even flash out. And that's what it seemed like happened there. So he's just dead. There's so much burst. BD is able to get him with the ultimate. And pop goes the Rakan. And this is the early game power of that Veigar. Now, as you mentioned, they weren't able to turn it into the Dragon. That is perfect.
Well, he's going to bring him back. I mean, is he going to commit to a play here? Yep, going to get the Impale. And the flash will answer it. It's always fun to play champs that just get free flashes if you set it up nicely, and Skarner is definitely one of those.
BDD will drop a significant amount of money to make this attempted roam happen topside, though. I don't think they're going to feel too happy about that, even though they did get the flash.
See Deft and Barrel, they're trying to clear this wave, but they're not quite able to. The damage is a bit delayed on Adeptus. They will get this kill, though, and the dive is going horribly wrong as 2 kills go the way of KT. Now, they do take out Deft, and aiming will still alive, so he'll get some value there, but not quite the cleanest dive I've ever seen, Wolf.
That's why you don't dive Nautilus. It's another Nautilus feature, is he's got those roots, and he just looks at one champion, he roots them, he hooks, he roots again, and he has a shield. You can't kill this guy, he didn't even have to flash.
Is it worth it? No. I don't think it is. I mean, aiming did get 1 extra wave. He's gonna get 1 extra plate. It is Zeri. I mean, it's not that bad.
So he's hooked kind of into the center here and tries to actually look for the knockup. So he actually could have tried to flash out there and survive, but wanted to actually re-engage. Looks like if Showmaker hits a nice shove after that, I guess maybe you could have turned that fight around, but he's just burst too quickly. And it's a judgment you have to make instantly, right? Now, watching this again, Deft gets knocked up here and then shoved, but Barrel is still pretty healthy. And look at the root, the hook. Not really going to be what you want here.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Nice.
BDD definitely feeling a lot better than he did after that game 1 loss where he looked like he was having a rough time. He's definitely changed the atmosphere now, got that first blood. They get the 2 kills bottom side. KT looking great here in this final game.
Yeah, they're definitely starting off on the right foot, as they did in game number 2. They were forced over to the red side here, but we talked a lot about their draft and how it feels like they got a lot of options. Even though they did have to give a lot of power over to DK, I still feel like they came up with a lot of good answers by the end of it all. And now KT are going to get started as Event Horizon will miss, and Perfect also has to cut the dash short. So Showmaker will be fine, but that is an early Mountain Drake over to KT.
Big for KT. You can see the potential of that, Skarner pushing somebody into the Event Horizon. This one was a little bit disjointed, so it doesn't end up working out, but very strong potential combo there. And BD will just sit back and farm. Don't know how many stacks he's on exactly, as we do see 2 stacks of Kindred Mark here for Pyosik at the moment. But I'm sure he's starting to get pretty up there in terms of that AP damage. It's Kingen. Gonna swap down here bottom side. They'll put the Zeri top. A little bit more comfortable up there to just kind of push in, maybe grab a plate here before KT can react. He does have his teleport back up, but I don't think he wants to expend it here.
Ah, yes, the Zeri versus Skarner lane.
Yes.
My favorite. See this all the time. Big mainstay here at the LCK.
Very hard to get to the Zeri, but also very hard to hurt the Skarner.
Yeah, top Zeri getting that solo farm, you know. That's the way it goes. Lucid and Kellen are up here, and they are going to push Perfect back. We've definitely seen this before.
I mean,
now seen it like 3 times today.
Now BDD is considering the teleport to the top side if they wanted to hold on to those minions, but he won't. We'll just stay down. Showmaker does not have teleport, but does, of course, have his ultimate to come up there, so could Weaver's Wall in if they really want to heavily commit. And BDD has to keep track of this. And Perfect says, like, I mean, my Veigar's got TP. You could try it if you want.
We'll see how it goes. 3 people coming on in, no teleport, and Perfect is just left out to dry as they're using quite a lot. Oh, the flash on in, and Perfect is going to turn it around. Picks up a kill for himself, 1v3 underneath his own turret.
I mean, it's just so hard to dive a Skarner. He has so many tools to stop the dive. He has flash, and he's able to trade it back. Well played by Perfect in this moment. Super clutch, and Deft and Barrel are getting plates bottom side here. So, yes, aiming will continue to do the same. But it feels like a huge trade up here for KT, considering how many resources were committed there to the top side.
TP. Yeah, and that's from the Skarner. So first turret blood does go to KT. And you saw that aiming it was just so difficult for him to actually do damage to that turret, as now he's got a Skarner on his back. Trying to go for the trade here is Perfect, and with Lucid in the river, he will back away.
Yeah, Perfect's like, that's the gameplay. I did 3 autos with the Q. And that's about all I can offer you. That's all I can tell you, Zeri.
Yeah.
If you come back in about 3 to 4 seconds, we can do it again. But stay in melee range, please. Because BDD did hit like 105 stacks. 4 stacks for Pyosik now, a big spike for him on the Kindred. So KT kind of swimming through this mid-game, feeling very good about how things are looking. Veigar stacking up. The Archangel's finished. Have to finish those tier stacks, of course, but BD picked up some extra money there. And this is a very strong mid-game situation. You can see how ahead Pyosik is on farm on the Kindred. And so it's really tough to fight this next Drake here for D+, but it's hard to give it up, too, when you don't know what soul it could be. It could be Hextech soul, it could be Infernal.
Yeah, if it's Hextech, and that goes the way of KT, you just give them the win from there, as it will be incredibly strong with Veigar. You've got Varus, you've got Kindred. I mean, so many ways to proc it, so many ways to follow up on plays, slowing everybody. As Barrel's going to find his support enemy.
I mean, BDD is nearby.
He's almost trying to bait Kellen into a fight so that BDD could get something going, but it's not quite going to happen.
thought potentially we would just see Barrel press R there and try to set up the chain damage into BDD's ult, but they think better of it.
He's gonna find Lucid, who does dodge that nicely. And really, your time to go in is when Event Horizon is down. And I think DK, they have identified this, but really nice Chain of Corruption does come down. Barrel also going to maintain that front line here, and now trying to go for the follow-up engage, and Kellen is just so dead, but now Barrel taking a ton of damage, and DK, look at turn this around, but again, the Lambs are fight pretty good, but Pyoshik left out to dry, and BDD and Def not quite able to step up to them as aiming, and Kingen so good, getting a bunch of resets, and ending that fight in their favor.
I'm not 100% sure why KT thought this was a fight they wanted the hill they wanted to die on, really, in terms of trying to force that. Yes, BD picks up that kill, but they use everything onto the engaging Rakan, and there's a Eclipse, Aatrox teleporting into the fight. Perfect doesn't have TP. You can't win this one long term, and as you mentioned, D+ know their window to push on Event Horizon. They actually get a ton of space here, and then Barrel goes in. Event Horizon is used to kill one support, and then all of your peel is really gone. Timing of the ult here for Pyoshik a little bit off, but I don't know how much it really matters here, as the numbers game is 100% always going to go D+'s, and the Skarner is just kind of looking a little bit silly over there on the top side. Perfect still doesn't have TP, and that's going to be the second Dragon going over to D+ Kia.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think when Veigar was a bit more meta, we used to talk about this a bit, especially with Vi, but the Vi can kind of just go under everything and not really care, and essentially just, ignore whatever you have in terms of defensive capability, which is part of the reason why it's so strong. You can't cleanse it, she'll always get in there. In this case, Lucid was zoned out a little bit, but then he just got to press his R onto a very nice target, and it's an Infernal Soul here.
It is. So, I mean, this is so massive for Veigar. And interestingly enough, because of the fact that D+ didn't, or that KT didn't get 2 dragons, they have an extra dragon worth of percentage-based AP he can get actually after this. So very important for KT these next few dragons, of course. But on the other side of things, I want to talk about the Zeri that's sitting on 4 kills. It's aiming Zeri, arguably his most iconic pick, and he has a Shiv and Runen, so his wave clear is pretty insane. So getting Prio back for KT to actually contest these dragons is going to be so challenging. And I am very concerned about, what this game is going to look like from here, because yes, they have a gold lead and arguably infinite scaling, but I think the game state heavily favors D+ with this big Zeri right now.
Yeah, the Zeri is basically a raid boss at this point, and you can throw down an Event Horizon, but that's got a cooldown. You can throw down a Lambs or Spite, that's got a very large cooldown, and the Zeri is just going to be skating around the map and can delay and can wait for her next opportunity to go in. You can only delay for so long, and I think KT, if you get very far behind, yes, you can throw all those things down, but then eventually DK just swing the hammer and kill you. So
yeah, it's like, did BDD's R kill the Zeri? If yes, like, okay. If no, then
they do have a Nautilus. I mean, a couple R buttons you can press on that pesky Zeri. But
aiming does have cleanse, of course, as well, so a lot of safety here on this pick. Now, it was a lot of scuffle there around that Herald charge, but no objective up to contest here, so everyone's going to reset and go back to their lanes. But if KT had been able to secure that turret, I think that would have been one step in the right direction for helping maintain, or at least try to regain mid-prio, since their turret is still up, but they don't get it. And Zeri backs, grabs a Crit Cloak, and aiming heads straight back to mid lane, and watch how quickly these minions disappear. It's pretty insane. I mean, Zeri's so strong she can get pentakills on other champions, apparently. That's what we learned today. So, like, I don't know. If KT want to get prio for this dragon in 2.5 minutes, they're going to have to be proactive about looking for a pick, and that means Perfect's teleport is really important, because perhaps a teleport flank could be what they need.
Yeah. I like how there's nothing really going on the map. There's no other objective. I mean, there is no objective. The dragon's not even up. And there's no camps for Lucid, so they're just all still kind of hanging around the dragon. Now, that does mean they're not in position to stop this push, so KT do get a free mid tier 1. Showmaker will get the bot tier 1, but the mid one is going to feel a bit better for KT.
That's really important for them. That means that they can potentially keep that mid prio a little bit more. I love the ward that's in mid as well set up here. Aiming is going to clear that one out, but small things like that can be how you get an advantage and how you might even potentially be able to set up for a pick. If someone gets greedy, good to clear that. As we do see 140 left, way more vision control right now for D+ on the bottom side of the river. And that's where this next fight is going to happen. And in terms of damage right now, Zeri is huge. They do have Leandries here for Showmaker, but I don't think that a 20-minute Baron is really on the cards. There's too many ways for KT to shut them down. Perfect has TP, he has Impale, and BD just going to put a cage on top of that Baron pit. You can't really do that right now. But KT kind of have to respect the possibility of it, and that means that vision just hasn't really been cleared up all too much on the bottom side of the map. Some of it cleared by D+ as they reset wards and start putting it up here to the top side instead. Maybe D+ have other ideas. Maybe they think they actually can start this Baron on spawn.
I think it's kind of rough. You don't really have a good tank for that one. I mean,
I just don't think so, right? Like,
Lion can only do so much in terms of tanking that damage, and I guess it'll also depend on what kind of Baron it is, but yeah, at the end of the day, they have the damage, but not really the tank ability, and you can get yourself in a bad spot against a Nautilus and a Skarner, of course, who have many different angles to engage as long as the Skarner's there.
So there's a
very important.
Yeah, there's a yeah. Oh, game 2. So
it's been a long day.
Turret's up for KT, and Zeri backed here. They have the wave prio. All that vision was actually, like I said, kind of replaced by D+, so they don't actually have a ton of control here or a ton of vision. KT are going to kind of get the jump on the prio here for this dragon. And D+, not in position really to come over here and contest this realistically without a really nice Vi ultimate here from Lucid. Love the positioning here of Perfect. They do a ton of damage to this dragon.
Another ward comes down. They see it's started up here, but the damage you mentioned is huge. And Beryl just walking up the event horizon. There's no way for the Vi to get in. You just cannot access the pit. And so the first Drake goes the way of KT with no bloodshed at all. Now KT is waiting in the brush, is going to zone DK away, and DK will respect that. So no kills, very much LCK Dragon taken. Lots of maneuvering, lots of strategizing about how they were going to take that one. And then KT just took it.
I think a lot of this came down to the fact that Zeri backed. You know, Aiming went to grab Last Whisper, and so the wave was there. It was tough for D+ to get in first. Positioning for Perfect, so good because they have an Event Horizon on one side, and they have an Angry Skarner with Flash and Impale on the other.
And the Nautilus.
Nautilus as well, as you mentioned. And D+ now kind of like, oh, we missed everything there. We didn't actually get a strong cross map. Not that there's much they could do. This mid turret is still sitting at like 75% health over here, almost 80% health. And so KT are just going to rinse and repeat as the Veigar gets stronger and stronger as this game continues. Beryl stealing away some blue side shards here. And, I mean,
here we
control
go.
ward, here we go. But, like, KT are around this area. All they need is to suss this out, and it's just going to be a no. They're able to avoid the Scuttle Crab.
Beryl just needs to place vision, and this will immediately stop. And there it is. There's the vision. And they have to back away. I mean, it's only 3 people. You can see Lucid's getting chunked. Everybody's getting chunked. Pyosik runs over, and they have to stop the Baron. So with 3 people, they can tank it up if nobody knows about it and sneak it, but that's going to be spotted out here by KT.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, I mean, I think it was a good try. I mean, no harm, no foul. Nobody gets taken out for it, and there's no, like, top turret to take. There's no standing gold on the map outside of that mid turret that, yes, Zeri can push waves to, but she can't actually go up and hit because there's just too many threats. And knowing that Skarner's TP is up means that he could come from any angle where you don't know where the teleport ward is, so you just have to be really respectful. So all he could do is send minions to the turret, but he can't actually do damage to it himself. The team groups for it. That's what KT wants. They want to pull him into the center there. So KT really hold all the cards right now.
Uh-oh. Not like this. You can see they don't really have the vision. Oh, the hook around the corner, and the Chain of Corruption will come down, as well as the R from the Nautilus, and Showmaker in so much trouble, but the counter engage comes in. The Lancer Spite is massive to keep them all alive, but Kingen is running at them. He is alone, but here comes Lucid now into that backline, takes down Deft, and you see it's Kingen against the world, whereas Perfect is going against the world as well. Kingen and Lucid still on the chase here. So many low health bars. BDD still alive. Perfect still in the 1v2. Lucid gonna pick up the double. BDD still alive.
The flash missed Q though, and Kingan's gonna get out here, and Perfect, I don't know if he's on for this world. Whoa!
Nice try, but yeah. Oh, the damage on Kellen. He is just so incredibly tanky. Can they actually kill him is the question. Need the VIQ to come back up, and there it is. They should have enough from here, and that is the one from aiming to finally take down Perfect.
The one thing I didn't see in that fight is who BDD ulted, because there were several targets of the early part of that fight where he could have actually gotten the secured kill, and he just held it.
Did he get in range here? Did he use it here?
No, he didn't use it at the beginning of the fight, as Barrel ends up getting the knockup. Yeah, I don't think he was in range. There's a can't get Showmaker there. Nope. And the Lamb's Respite is pretty good. Great flashes here in reaction to Cam, but it's a 2-for-1 for him. And then Lucid gets over the wall here. BD just trying to set the event horizon to help his squad get out. He lives, and then flashes.
Here? Yeah.
Yeah, that was not the timing, unfortunately. And then he flashes to try to hit the Q and completely whiffs it. And that's a great fight for D+. You can see with proactive re-engages into a moment like this, D+'s comp is actually so insanely strong. And there's just so much CC and mobility with the Aatrox that's so fast at closing the gap on these squishy champions. The Weaver's Wall plus the shoves. And aiming is just so huge at this point. I mean, he's a big shutdown of gold if BDD can get into ultimate range and actually just QR him later on in this game, but he's not quite that big yet. Doesn't have a death cap. Doesn't have that many stacks in at 203 right now. So significant, but he's looking at a maximum of 1,119 damage on his level 2 ultimate.
Yeah, he just got Sterixed in the last one. Just didn't factor it in, and unfortunately, you know, if he didn't have that item, Aatrox, he would have died, but it's not the way it went. Here comes Perfect over the wall, maybe thinking about running at Lucid, maybe trying to get some vision, but kind of a weird last fight. That doesn't give you a great sense, I think, about, you know, who's really strong at this point in time. It was a very messy one.
I mean, aiming, if he is still alive at the end of the fight, I don't know if KT ever wins those, right? And it's so hard to catch him. He's so mobile, and he's positioned himself so incredibly far back. It's Kellen who's caught by this event horizon. They're just trying to zone here as they push bottom parts, or the bottom part of this fight, but Lucid just gonna walk away. Kingen does not have TP, so I don't know if he's actually gonna fully channel that back. He decides ultimately not to.
Yeah, I would say probably can at this point.
And that mid turret still getting so much value here for KT.
Yeah, it allows them to step up in a somewhat precarious situation. Kingen just trying to get what he can with his passive, just gonna clear out the wave. And it's a standoff, man. They're just looking at each other. Nobody's willing to start up the Drake just yet. We did have Kingen. Channel is back, and he gets Warmogs here at 27 minutes, but Lucid went back as well. So now Pioshik just gonna start this one up alone, and they're missing 2 players at this point in time. The wall will come down, and it will actually push KT off of this objective.
Yeah, it's gonna reset as BDD does not have flash, wants an event horizon onto aiming so badly, but is just spaced so incredibly well on this Zeri. Event horizon just zoning the front line here. Barrel looking for an angle here. Can he get into range to ult aiming? He's trying.
Oh yeah, he would love to. But he is gonna play that front line and skip vision. Do they know about this guy on the left side, the Vi? They get onto the back line, and now the ult comes in. Kellen does go down, but Lucid's in that back line. The Lamb's Respite is gonna keep them all alive, but the health bars are so low, and Showmaker is just running them down alongside of aiming, who on the Zeri, alongside of this Aatrox, will eventually nearly totally wipe them. The triple kill comes through, 5,000 damage for aiming. And that was the engage that DK was looking for.
And even with Barrel on the Nautilus, they just can't shut this guy down. And each and every time, it's D+ dictating the pace in the beginning of these fights. And Showmaker does an insane amount of damage, gets 3,000 assists as well, the 4th to do so here in mid for the LCK. Still got a ways to go to catch up to Chovy, but Dragon is going to go the way of D+2 for 2 here in terms of Dragons, but the gold lead is so significant now for D+, or more than that, aiming just seems too big to fail. And look at this setup here. Barrel looks for the hook, and the damage comes through. Yeah, you got the Rakan, you burst him down, but look at the damage Showmaker is doing. The Lamb's Respite here just buys time, but it doesn't delay the inevitable with all of this damage coming through from Showmaker. Perfect doesn't really do damage. She's just simply a tank, and when the damage line of KT is either dead or zoned away, there is nothing you're going to do. And if you can't 100-0 the Zeri, you can't win this game.
It's exactly what we talked about not 10 minutes ago, right? Like, you can delay the team fights, but eventually DK, if they are far enough ahead, they can just wait. And Beryl, he threw everything into aiming. He was zoning him. And that's one of those things where you're like playing with your friends. You're like, I'm zoning this area. I'm doing everything I can. And it just doesn't matter because they have so many other threats. They have the Zeri who can then eventually just dash right over the wall, straight into the guys that are trying to run away. And yeah, it's just not quite enough. The delay is not enough for KT. I mean, Veigar is not strong enough.
No, really not. I mean, he's sitting at 30 minutes in nearly, and he doesn't have his death cap. He's very far from it.
Oh, there's a little bit of an engage here as they're trying to get on up. Pioshik and BDD is in a really rough spot. Knocked up forever. The Lancers fight and triple impale. Will it matter, though? I think the answer is no. Pioshik, though, with a couple of kills, though, making it interesting. BDD also picks up one. But at the end of the day, Kingen and Aiming are still alive, and they're still fighting here with pretty healthy health bars. Perfect is so incredibly tanky. Can they take him out is the question. He's flashing onto Aiming, and he takes him down! Perfect with a huge kill! Gets the shutdown of 1,000 gold, but eventually he does go down himself.
Massive shutdown.
Only Kingen and BDD left.
Massive shutdown. I thought perhaps he was going to try to make a play to pull him into BDD, but he knows he's low enough. He can actually flash stun him into the wall and look for the kill there. He picks up the shutdown, which is massive for him. As this fight starts off with Beryl said, I've had enough. I'm going on this Zeri, but no one else can get anywhere close to the zoning from Showmaker. And the Lamb's Respite here is fantastic with Perfect getting a massive impale, but ultimately it is the fight win for D+ until Perfect snap flashes onto Aiming here. Aiming not gonna respect the range here. Wait for it. Wait for it. Bam! And that was super clean from Perfect. It will cost him his flash, but on the Skarner, you feel pretty good with that. And picking up the money is massive. And they might have been able to even start that Baron up if Aiming was alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those two can do it with that one, especially if BDD gets zoned away. And it was insane how much value Pioshik got in that fight. It was almost like they forgot to kill him after the Lamb's Respite because they got two of the other guys, but he actually just dashed away and he got a double kill somehow. A lot of the members on DK were also pretty low in that Lamb's Respite. You can see the difference here in XP between our 80 carries. Deft is very far behind in comparison with where Aiming is at right now. Deft down towards the bottom, actually, as Kingen is alone, but so is Beryl, and that hook is not going to hit the wall. Beryl just dead, not going to be saved by the Event Horizon, and that might just be Baron.
Yeah, I mean, we were all in Beryl's world until now. Beryl is the only one in Beryl's world, and I don't think he should be there right now. It's game 3. It's the series decider, and another intense.
Oh, here we go. Lamb's Respite is going to be cast, but he's alone, and everybody else is running away. So Pioshik will be taken out. Lots of damage coming in now. They want to end this right here, right now. BDD is in the Zhonya's against so many people, and he will eventually be taken out by Aiming. Of all people, going to stack that bounty even larger as they will now go for the Baron.
Beryl gets caught. He wants to set up for the flank there, but I mean, even Kingen had GA. There wasn't really any way they could have blown him up there, and Beryl is really fishing the last fight as well, just going straight on to Aiming with no follow-up, no ability for the rest of the team to come through. These are really backfiring for him. Unfortunately, that means D+ will get the Baron, and you know, it's one of those moments where you look at the scenario and you're like, well, D+, super happy with it as we go back to this moment here where Pioshik, again, buys time. A ton of poke coming through from Deft and BDD, but look at Kingen flashing in on the play, knowing he can make this call because he has GA, there's no threat, and also the ult from BDD is down anyway, so wouldn't even been forced to drop the GA. Just a decisive call after it all. And it all started off with Beryl looking for the flank and getting caught. This is not Infernal Soul, but it is going to be Infernal Soul point here. D+, though, looking for more damage to the base first.
Yeah, they have 2 minutes of Baron now. They can certainly split this up into a 4-1. They've got Showmaker down on the bottom side, can always join with the wall. And even Kingen gonna join him down here to start this one off. Definitely wanna try to extend this lead. They are in a comfortable spot already. as maybe they're just going to dive instead. I mean, they are looking for BDD, and that is the ult to come in, but no follow-up as finally the recon goes in, and down will go BDD. Barrel as well underneath the turrets, and that's a couple of more kills for the Zeri. Is this just going to be another penta? That's a triple already for the side of aiming, and you can see that KT do not want to give that one over.
Yeah, I think he's going to be hard-pressed to kill for a full health Skarner, but, you know,
maybe it was just a double. I'm not sure.
I think it was a triple.
I thought it was a triple, but I saw double come up, so I'm not 100%. Either way, this is great for DK. They're pushing in, and they might finally end the chaos that is DK versus KT every single time. That's perfect now. There's only so much tanking that Scorpion can do, and down he will go. Down will go the Nexus turrets, and D plus Kia will be your winners tonight in the 2-1 victory over KT.
Once again, a series that goes to 3, it goes the distance, and D+, the winners of the last one in Game 5, will start a streak as they win another in 3 here against KT Rolster. A back-and-forth series, you know, the run back of the draft, the small tweaks, right, coming through from KT. Super fun to watch that. Then everyone playing the Dream Champion, you know, BDD on his classic Veigar. You've got aiming on the Zeri, Kingan's Aatrox. We had a little bit of everything in this series, and honestly, I would say it's pretty close between this one and the Hanwha series, but both D+ series have been the best of the season so far.
Kingan says, I'm #1. I pulled out my Aatrox. I'm a World's MVP, and you better respect me. And Lucid as well, just another massive series. This guy, who's gonna stop him? Now that he's comfortable in the LCK, he's just insane. And you mentioned it at the beginning, you know, we talked so much about how good Lucid was in Challengers. And I'm so glad that everybody now gets to enjoy it, not only the Challengers watchers. And yeah, every single DK player is getting a moment to do a little celebration. And they should be really excited at this point, facing off against 2 really strong teams and taking them both down.
The Kindred pick, you know, at the end of the day, always felt like a delay of a lost team fight, and there was never enough turn. And the ults were often used by BDD super early because he was under so much threat. He was like, well, I just have to press R on somebody before I die to get the damage out. But it never felt like there was a big high-impact ult onto a Zeri ever. Aiming's positioning was fantastic, and he became so huge. The Aatrox as well for Kingan was so pivotal in some of those late-game plays, flashing forward. His flanks, even though he didn't often get kills on them, kept KT Rolster honest on some of those Drake setups. Like, they couldn't actually move in to try to set up an event horizon because that meant that they put Aatrox in the position to then blow up BDD. And both teams playing a pretty good game of League of Legends here, right? The early game was very back and forth, perfect with some really clutch plays as well. Like, yeah, I think for me so far, and we'll see what happens tomorrow with the you know, Gen G T1 series, that might take the cake in the end, but this is my series of the week so far for sure in terms of entertainment value. Absolutely. I think this one was really, really fun. Really close at many times. These 2 teams very evenly matched. And at the end of the day, it just feels like DK are coming out stronger here at the beginning of week 1. Or I should say at the beginning of summer in week 1. And yeah, you know, some of these champs, you like the ideas, but you were talking about the composition. The Aatrox is just one more added threat. Every single person, every single champion in the DK roster was designed to dive the backline, and there were just too many threats. You can't event horizon them all forever. I mean, in that last fight, you saw that basically everything perfect used onto Kingan to keep him out of the fight. He's like, all right, I'm going to push him back. I'm going to impale him. And meanwall, the fight is over on the other side.
Yeah. Eventually, you know, if BDD gets caught one time, the fight's over. It just doesn't matter what the comp is. And DK, this is the winning fight for them.
A lot of mixed comms here, but you could feel the tension is definitely, it's there, but it's also kind of a hype moment.
Joking around.
I know the game's done.
Asking if Varus has ults, they want to go for Varus. Down for Skarner, flash Q. Jeff, get over here. Showmaker once more. And that does it that is the final team fight of the night and aiming.
What do you think? Do you think Ox votes for aiming in this one? Do you think he could be man enough to do it?
No. There's no way.
I voted
There's
for,
no way.
I voted for King, and actually I did it. I thought his zoning was incredible.
Fair enough.
Some of his clutch plays were good.
Look at him. No way. Hey, Crockler gave a thumbs up. He's like, yeah, okay.
Oh, I love our team, all of us.
Yeah.
We're all so fun and cool, and we make fun of each other all the time. We're the
Especially
best.
Wolf. He's the best. Anyway, guys, we are done. We are done for today. It was 6 long games once again. A lot of fun. I hope you guys did enjoy. We're going to hand it over to the space to finish off the night.
Thank you very much. This is Dear for the POG interview translation, joined by Lucid on the side of D plus Kia, who just claimed the second consecutive win against KT Rolster in a 3-game series. Congratulations! This is the first solo POG of the summer. How do you feel? I actually thought that aiming would get the POG in Game 3, but I'm really happy. It makes me feel really good. So it was a matchup of two teams who went neck and neck all spring, and it was an intense match today taken to Game 3 as well. So what do you think makes the game so close against KT? I feel like KT has a lot of players that are veterans, and because of how skilled they are, it always takes us to a 3-game series. And this summer, you are the first to pick Poppy, and with an amazing performance, you've received your POG. So what do you think the Poppy's strength is for the current meta? I feel like the way that Poppy can take a lot of advantage early, and the way you can actually gank really well with her are the two main strengths. So let's take a look at the replay where we witnessed a bold pathing by you. And even while getting chased by Sejuani, you refused to recall. So, right here, I knew that Sejuani was there because of the vision thanks to BDD. But I knew that I was going to be able to survive thanks to the vision that we had mainly, and that I had some backup. And in Game 3, you picked Vi as your B1 pick. And just from the way you play, it shows us that you have a very good understanding of Vi like no other. So how confident are you with Vi, and how do you catch these engaged angles? I feel like, yeah, I'm pretty confident with her. And the engaged angles is really based on the positioning of my teammates. And Pyoshik's signature pick, Kindred, made an appearance, so what was on your mind? Yeah, it actually made me... I felt a little flustered. We definitely didn't expect that. And I felt like we got outplayed in the early game. But I feel like in the end we were the lucky ones and we were able to win. So what an amazing win by D plus Kia. Your performance really stood out since the opening day, and after all the experience you gained from spring, you seem to have grown immensely. So how would you rate yourself? I feel like I've gotten and grown to be a lot more confident. And I feel like especially in Game 2, there are a lot of mistakes that I was able to get from the feedback, and just from the guidance that I get from my coaching staff and the older teammates that I have, I feel like I'm able to grow. Now, along with today's victory, there's another good news. Showmaker has reached 3,000 all-time LCK assists. I hope that we can stay as teammates and work together for a very long time. Congratulations, Showmaker. Now, with your next opponent being T1, how certain are you for your third consecutive win? I feel like even before the schedule came out, actually when I saw the schedule, I knew that we were going back to back against strong teams, and I was very worried. But now that we're starting off strong, I feel like we are able to win. We'll make sure that we have a good result. And that's the end of the interview with Lucid of D plus Kia, and back to the space. Thank you.